Chapter 305. When the children outside heard this, they immediately felt the fear of being dominated by the stick. They hurriedly threw away the pebbles in their hands and ran away. Creak. The broken door was pushed open. The man walked out with a stick in one hand, and a hand on his head with the other. When he saw that there was no one outside, he said indifferently, Don't let me catch you next time. Cuckoo. Just as he was about to go back to sleep, the sound of a bird came from the tree. The man stopped in his tracks. His originally lazy eyes flashed with a strange luster. Then, he raised his hand and grabbed the bird with the letter tied to his leg through the air. He did not open the letter, as if he already knew the contents. He said indifferently, You actually need me to kill an iron bone. Whoosh. He walked into the broken house and came out again. His tattered clothes were replaced by black clothes. His hair was still messy, and he emitted a lazy aura. The man muttered, Finish it quickly and come back to sleep. Whoosh. He used his movement technique and disappeared from the courtyard like a ghost. He went to the Azure Sun County 1,000 miles away. This person was obviously an expert. It was a bit inconceivable that he would live in a broken house and let the children throw pebbles at him. It was normal. In the Falling Star continent, there would always be some experts with strange tempers. They would either hide in the wilderness or in the city, not known by the world. In the eyes of ordinary people, they were even more ordinary than them. In fact, they had terrifying cultivation and could kill people with a flick of their fingers. This seemingly listless man was a martial king. He was also the Jiangye that the leader mentioned. He was a member of the Demon Fiend Sect, but not a disciple. It was more like an employment relationship. Therefore, he did not live in the southwest Yangzhou branch. That's right. He was a descendant of the Jiang family. His parents had passed away, leaving him with only a dilapidated house. In the eyes of the Jiangjia town's residents, he was a good-for-nothing who liked to eat and do nothing. But in fact he was an evil sect expert. Killing people was like eating a meal for him. Because of his personality, Jiangye did not like to show his face in public. When he didn't have any missions, he would live in a rundown house. Even if he was bullied by children, he would behave like a normal person. At that time, the big branch leader had asked him, In the branch headquarters, there are good wine, good food, and beautiful women to serve you. Why do you want to live in Jiangjia town and live like a beggar? Jiangye said, Because that is my home. There wasn't much explanation. Just a few simple words. Big Branch Master's evaluation was that this person was sick, and very sick at that. Of course. When doing quests, Jiangye seemed to have transformed from an ordinary person into a demon from hell. As long as he set his eyes on his prey, there would be no chance of survival. He had annihilated at least a dozen sections. Because he was a martial king who killed people like Scything Flax, the Fiend Devil Sect branch disciples gave Jiangye a nickname, King of Hell Jiang. In Jiangjia town, because he was idle and had nothing to do all day, the townspeople gave him a nickname, Beggar Jiang. The King of Hell the Beggar. Two titles, two extremes. Ironbone Clan? Jiangye, who was moving at an extremely fast speed, muttered, This seems to be an unrated sect. It's really surprising that they could kill branch leader Zhao. Ironbone Clan. After Jun Changshao separated from City Lord Xie and the others, he brought Li Qingyang and the others back. The disciples, who were looking forward to it, immediately cheered excitedly after learning that they had won 74 rounds. Sect leader Li Luoqiu said, I never dreamed that our Ironbone clan would win 74 rounds and not lose a single round. Jun Changshao laughed. There are still many things that you didn't expect in the future. There's no need to make a fuss. Then, Li Luoqiu said, Do you want to celebrate tonight? Of course. After winning a big victory, Sect leader Jun would definitely celebrate. However, before that, he first took back the primary grade Sect protection array that he had set up in the sect, and then began to set up the middle grade Sect protection array. Buzz! An hour later, after spending 10 contribution points, the brand new formation was quickly formed, and then it became invisible. Because the level was relatively high, not only did it cover the inner and outer courtyard, it also covered a large area of the back mountain. The system said, The middle grade sect protection array is far higher than the primary grade. It should not be a problem for it to withstand the bombardment of the martial king and Wu Huang. Jun Changxiao said, I'm at ease. With such a powerful array, there was no need to fear the devil fiend sect finding trouble. After the array was set up, Jun Changxiao opened the purchased items column and spent 200 contribution points to buy 4 bottles of different levels of aptitude modification liquid. At this time, he already had 40 bottles of aptitude modification liquid and began to distribute them to the outer sect disciples who had participated in the Battle of the Sacred Spring Sect. Yang Yuhua and Ling Yuanxue received the high-grade aptitude modification liquid. Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others received the mid-grade aptitude modification liquid. Thus, in a short period of time, after the outer sect disciples who had participated in the battle took the modification liquid, their spirit root level increased by a level. In fact, with Jun Changxiao's current contribution points, if he bought all the high-grade aptitude modification liquid, he could instantly create dozens of disciples with high-grade spirit roots. But he couldn't spend it carelessly. After all, the middle-grade sect protection array had to be activated at all times to guard against the devil fiend sect's attack. This thing costs 10 points a day and can burn 1,000 points in 3 months, so he must leave enough contribution points. After the outer sect disciples were distributed, Jun Changxiao called Tianqi over and threw him a bottle of the highest grade aptitude modification liquid. He received 2 bottles of this modification liquid from the Sacred Spring Sect after completing the mission. Thank you, Sect Master. Tianqi took the modification liquid back to his residence and drank it. His spirit root went from high grade to top grade, and his realm also went from 4th grade to 5th grade martial master, the same as Li Qingyang and the others. At this point, the Ironbone inner sect disciples all had top grade spirit roots. As for the outer sect disciples, there were also 14 high-grade spirit roots. In terms of the number of high-grade spirit roots, even the 4th-rate sects might not be able to compare. The only thing they lacked was to raise their cultivation. There's still a bottle of the highest grade aptitude modification liquid. Who should I give it to? Jun Changxiao muttered. He now had 2 candidates. One was Long Xiang, and the other was Song Xianzhou. After all, both of them had high-grade spirit roots from the start. Forget it, Jun Changxiao said. When the sect competition is held, whoever gets first place and becomes an inner sect disciple will take it as a reward. Calculating the time, there was only a little more than half a month until the first intersect tournament began. Of course, Jun Changxiao would not let the outer sect disciples who got first place enter the inner sect. As long as their performance was outstanding enough, they could enter the inner sect. In this way, Yang Yuhua and Ling Yuanxue, who had already entered the martial master realm, had a high chance of becoming inner sect disciples. Should I set up a direct disciple? Jun Changxiao said while holding his chin. The system said, what the host should consider now is to set up the position of elder or more halls. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes and said, I also want to, but at present, who in the sect is qualified to be elder or hall master? The system was silent for a while, then said, no one is qualified. Chapter 306. Night fell. On the training field of Iron Bone, there was a huge bonfire. The rising flames illuminated the surroundings clearly. Hundreds of tables surrounded the bonfire. On them were all kinds of delicacies, pastries, and jars of wine. Thousands of disciples stood in a mess. The atmosphere was warm and high, as if they were holding a celebration party. Come, Jun Chang raised his big bowl and said, to the disciples who defeated the Holy Spring Sect and spread the might of Iron Bone, let's drink this bowl of wine. Sect leader is mighty, senior brother is mighty. The disciples raised their bowls and drank to their heart's content. Their mood, which had always been in a high-intensity cultivation, also eased a lot under the stimulation of alcohol. Balance between work and rest. This was always emphasized by sect leader Jun. Therefore, such gatherings would naturally be held once in a while. Firstly, it could allow the disciples to relax. Secondly, it could allow everyone to better integrate into the big family of Iron Bone. Sect leader Su Xiaomo raised his wine and said, Thank you for cultivating me for more than a year. This bowl of wine is a toast to you. Hey, Jun Changshao said. If each of you toasted a bowl of wine, I'm afraid I would be drunk into a puddle of mud today. Although he said that, he still raised his bowl and drank with Su Xiaoma. After all, he was a native of Shandong in his previous life. On the wine table, he was forthright and did not refuse anyone. Moreover, spirit qi could dispel the alcohol. As long as he didn't want to get drunk, it didn't matter how much he drank. Sect leader, Xiao Ziji raised his bowl and said, "This cup of wine is a toast to you. I also hope that the sect will prosper and become the strongest sect in the falling star continent." Su Xiaoma smiled and said, "Junior brother Xiao said the wrong thing. It should be the strongest sect. Drink is punishment, drink is punishment." Li Fei and Tian Qi hurriedly followed suit. Xiao Ziji awkwardly drank 2 big bowls in a row. Unable to withstand the alcohol, his face immediately turned red. When he won the Great Sect competition in Liang City, he had drunk too much. He hugged the wine jar and cried, because that was the emotional release of 5 years of grievances. Now that he was drunk once more, there was a smile on his face. Because there was no more grievance, no more decadence, only a stronger heart. Jun Changshao was happy to see that Xiao Zuiji, who had sunk into depression, was able to stand up again after being fed chicken soup and trained. Sect leader, Li Qingyang raised the cup and said, "This cup of wine is a toast to you." If he had not met Jun Changshao, his life would have ended outside the Green Sun City, and he would not have achieved what he had today. The other disciples all toasted to express their admiration for the sect leader. After a while, Jun Changshao drank dozens of bowls of wine. Although he occasionally used his spiritual power to dissolve part of the alcohol, the drunkenness still disturbed his sea of consciousness. Come. Su Xiaoma drunkenly held a bowl of wine and put his arm around Li Fei's shoulder, saying, "Let's drink." "How is one enough? Tell me how many." "At least 6 lucky." "Damn, you're quite gutsy. Come, let's drink 6. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei stood up. The two of them placed 10 large bowls on the table, and then filled them all with wine. "They're going to fight." All the disciples gathered around to watch the show. Gulp. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei stepped on the chairs, and then began to drink bowl after bowl. "Senior brothers," Li Tian shouted. "This bowl of wine is more expensive than a kilogram of meat, don't spill it." Pfft. Li Fei couldn't hold it in and spat out the wine, splashing it all over his face. Ha ha ha. Ha. All the disciples laughed until they were convulsing. Jun Changshao held a bottle of wine and lay on the stairs in front of the hall, watching the disciples play to their heart's content. The corner of his mouth raised into a smile. He wanted to build the strongest sect. He also wanted to build a happy and warm home. For now he had a happy and warm home. But there was still a long way to go before he could build the strongest sect. Not all of them had been drinking. For example, Lu Qianqian, Yi Xingchen and Zhou Hong. Although the 3 of them didn't drink, standing in front of the table, the cheerful atmosphere around them also affected their hearts. Especially Yi Xingchen. Looking at his fellow disciples drinking without any scruples, looking at the frank smiles on their faces, he thought to himself, "In my previous life, I've never seen such a happy sect." After half a round of drinking, Jun Changshao turned on the speaker, and the disciples danced around the fire to the accompaniment of music. Sect leader, Lu Qianqian walked over and stood in front of the stairs saying, "It's a little inappropriate to let your guard down like this." "It's fine." Jun Changshao took a sip of wine and said, "No one can break in." Boom. Suddenly, a loud sound was heard. The disciples who were dancing all stopped, their eyes filled with surprise. Pa! Jun Changshao turned off the speaker, got up, and quickly dissolved the alcohol with spiritual energy. His whole person suddenly became extremely sober. Boom! Boom! Just at this moment, 2 more loud sounds were heard. The formation hidden in the space gradually revealed itself. Clearly it was under attack. Lu Qianqian frowned and said, "The people of the Demon Fiend sect are here. They're really fast." Jun Changshao stepped forward and opened the dark red door. At the entrance of the mountain gate stairs, A man in black clothes scratched his head and said, I didn't expect this little iron bone to have an array protecting it. Who was this person? Hades Jiang, beggar Jiang. At dusk, he was still thousands of miles away, but he came so quickly. His speed was quite fast. Jun Changshao said, Who are you? Jiang Ye raised his head, flicked his messy black hair, and said with a smile, Demon Fiend Sect, Jiang Ye. Creak. The door closed directly, and Jun Changshao's voice came. Sorry, my Iron Bone Sect doesn't welcome people from the Demon Fiend Sect. Please go back. Jiang Ye grinned and said, Boy, is it because of the defensive array that you are so fearless? Shua. As he spoke, he raised his right fist. Spiritual energy visible to the naked eye instantly surged from all directions, and then suddenly blasted over. Bang! The power of this punch was at least more than 1,000,000 caddies, which could be said to be quite explosive, but it didn't cause the slightest ripple when it hit the sect protecting array. Jiang Ye was a little confused. His strength just now had already condensed to 2,000,000 caddies. Even if he couldn't break the array, he should at least give it some face. This Iron Bone's defensive array is a bit strong. Jiang Ye rubbed his hands but also smiled and said, However, for me, it's also very challenging. Ho ho. His body released a vast amount of demonic energy, and then under the control of spiritual thoughts, it instantly turned into fists and blasted toward the array barrier. Boom, boom, boom. Bursts of explosions came, like the sound of firecrackers. However, after the crazy bombardment, Jiang Ye grabbed his hair and collapsed. What the hell is this array? After dozens of punches, there is no reaction at all. There was a reaction. With the series of bombardment just now, the sect protecting array, which was slightly blurry, became clearer and clearer. The disciples who were in the sect could see the arc-shaped array barrier in the sky. Babies. Jun Changshao clapped his hands and said, It's getting late, go back and rest. Yes. The disciples cleaned up the martial arts practice field, and then returned to the inner courtyard to sleep. Although at night, there were occasional bombardment sounds from outside, they slept very soundly. This was because they had been cultivating for too long, drinking and having fun to relax. Jun Changshao also had a good sleep. The next day, when he woke up and opened the red-painted door, he saw the guy called Jiang Ye still standing in front of the mountain gate, his eyes bloodshot. This was not because he had stayed up late. This was because he was angry, because he couldn't break the array through the night. Boom. Jiang Ye fiercely blasted the barrier again. His strength was still 2 to 3 million caddies, but it didn't shake at all. Finally, he squatted on the ground, grabbing his hair with a look of despair. Chapter 307. Jiang Ye, a genuine martial king. At this moment, he was squatting in front of the Iron Bone Mountain Gate, with a face full of despair. He had originally planned to complete the mission and go home early to sleep, but after an entire night, he couldn't even break through their defensive array. It was a tragedy. He was also helpless. Jun Changshao leaned against the door and crossed his arms. Are you tired? Jiang Ye's eyes were filled with anger, and he said, Brat, if you have the guts, get out here for this king. This king? This self-proclaimed title was a bit amazing. Could it be that he was? That's right. The system said, This person is a martial king, his strength is unfathomable. If the host goes out, he will be beaten into a pile of shit. TSK. The Devil Fiend Sect really thought highly of him, sending a martial king. Jun Changshao grinned and said, I am standing in front of the door. If you have the ability, break the array and come in. The other party was a martial king, so he definitely wouldn't go out. Brat. Jiang Ye clenched his fists tightly, and said with a cold gaze, When this king breaks the array, I will tear you into pieces. As expected of Hades Jiang, once he entered the mission state, just the look in his eyes was very frightening. Unfortunately, he could only say ruthless words outside and couldn't enter at all. Creak. Jun Changshao ignored him and closed the door. He first went to the first and second floors of the training pagoda to train for 4 hours, and then began to circulate the Yi Jin Jing to cultivate. After breaking through to the second stage Wuzong, he could clearly feel that although the speed of absorbing spirit energy had increased, the strengthening of the spirit energy in the spirit core had slowed down a lot. Even with the supply of qi gathering pills, it would be good enough to break through to the third stage in a year. As Jun Changxiao muttered to himself, he took out a perfectly round martial master pill. He had obtained 50 points of medicinal herbs from Ma Yunting, and on the way back to the sect, he had already finished refining them. With this kind of pill, disciples who have reached the peak of martial disciple will have an easy time breaking through, and it will also save a lot of time for self-comprehension. If Xiao Ziji and Yi Xingchen were stuck at the peak of martial disciple, they would have had the martial master pill, and their cultivation would have been even higher. This was what it meant to be a tree planted by one's predecessors, while the descendants enjoyed the shade. Jun Changxiao called Li Qingyang over and said, "Go and count the number of disciples in the sect who have reached the peak of martial disciple realm." Sect leader, Li Qingyang said, "There are a total of 67 peak martial disciples." He was truly a qualified supervisor of internal affairs, knowing the cultivation of his fellow disciples like the back of his hand. "It's a little too much. It's not enough to share," Jun Changxiao said. "We still have to get more herbs to refine it." Boom! Outside, another rumbling sound could be heard. Sect Master Jun, who had originally planned to make a trip to Huyang City, frowned and said, "Although that guy can't enter, he can't get out by blocking the entrance. He could use voice transmission to inform the members of the Drizzle Hall in Huyang City. But he had to think of a way to get rid of that guy called Jiangya. How to solve it? This was a very big problem. Jun Changxiao did not think that he could defeat a martial king with the help of the Green Dragon Crescent Blade. If he used it to deal with a single person, it would be a bit of a waste. Headache. Jun Changxiao sat in the study and rubbed his temples. The system said, even if the host can get rid of that martial king, the Demon Fiend sect will definitely continue to send experts to harass you. Sigh. Jun Changxiao said, strength. If he had the cultivation of a martial king, and wielded the Green Dragon Crescent Blade, how could he be afraid of the Demon Fiend sect? Aha! At this moment a voice rang out. Jun Changxiao looked up and saw the fire dragon lying in its nest yawning lazily, and then waking up from its hibernation. This little guy has finally woken up. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a scorching flame erupted. Not only did it envelop the fire dragon, it also burned its nest in an instant. The temperature in the room rose sharply. Shwa! Jun Changxiao reacted quickly. Without saying a word, he rushed over and picked up the little guy who was enveloped in flames. Then he jumped out of the open window. Whoosh whoosh. As soon as he arrived at the open area, the flames around the little dragon's body had already risen to 2 to 3 meters high. Fortunately, Jun Changxiao was its master and could ignore the temperature of the flames. Fortunately, he carried it out quickly. Otherwise, the study would have been burned down. Oh my God! What a big ball of flames! Could it be that the sect leader is cultivating a fire attribute martial technique? When the passing disciples saw the huge wave of flames erupting from Jun Changxiao's hand, their eyes immediately filled with envy and admiration. But in fact, the flames were erupted by the little dragon. It had nothing to do with him. Arriving at the small martial arts practice field in the inner courtyard, Jun Changxiao hurriedly threw the little guy in the center, then took a few steps back and muttered, "Why did it spit out fire for no reason?" The system said, "It should be evolving." Evolving? The system explained, "Every time a special beast hibernates, it will begin to evolve, and its strength will also increase by a lot." Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. After spending so much money, if the beast that was hatched became stronger from evolution, it would naturally be the best thing. Huff huff. The scorching flames continued to rise. The temperature in the inner courtyard became hot and dry as the flames rose. Although Su Xiaoma didn't know what was going on, he hurriedly returned to the side room and hung the freshly washed school uniform outside the martial arts practice field. Seeing this, Li Fei and the others naturally wouldn't miss the good opportunity to dry the clothes, so they took action one after another. In a short period of time, ropes were placed around the martial arts practice field. There were school uniforms, bedding, and white underwear on them. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. My contract beast is evolving here. And you guys are relying on the released flames to dry the clothes. Can't you be more serious? Huff huff. The scorching flames were still erupting without restraint. At first glance, it looked like the big fire that was lit during the celebration party yesterday. If it woke up yesterday, it could have saved some firewood. Jun Changxiao muttered. The fire dragon was shrouded in flames and continued to burn for several hours. Until night fell, the scorching flames began to fade. The evolution is over, the system said. Jun Changxiao's eyes flashed with the luster of anticipation, looking forward to what changes his contract beast would have after the evolution. Gradually, the flames fell from the initial 2 to 3 meters high to a very small size. The little dragon's figure could also be clearly seen. Just from its physique alone, it was much bigger than before. Huff huff. After a while, the dragon's head appeared. Its 2 nostrils breathed in and out, and the surrounding flames were sucked in. In the dark night, as the flames gradually decreased, it returned to normal from the red color. Roar! After the evolution, the little dragon raised its head and roared. The dragon's roar suddenly echoed in the sky above Ironbone. Huh! Jiangya, who had just punched twice without any results, frowned and said, This Ironbone, could it be that there is still a guardian beast? The dragon's roar alarmed the disciples. They walked out of the side room one after another, and saw a half-meter-long, fiery red beast, standing on the small martial arts practice field like a snake. This is Su Xiaoma's mouth twitched and said, Little dragon. Li Fei hugged his head and said, Why did it wake up? Why did it become bigger again? Tianqi collapsed and said, That big flame, was it released by it? Chapter 308. After sleeping for a few months, the fiery dragon completed its evolution. Its body also changed from the size of a palm to more than half a meter long. At first, because its body was too small, it gave people the impression of a lizard. Now that it has grown a lot, because its body is very smooth, it looks like a snake. Jun Changxiao didn't think that the little dragon was a snake, because it has 4 short legs, and each leg has 5 sharp claws like an eagle. The system said, This guy doesn't look like a fiery dragon. Nonsense. Jun Changxiao said. The system said, In terms of physique, it is closer to a dragon. In terms of the number of claws, it is more like the legendary 5-clawed divine dragon. 5-clawed divine dragon? Jun Changxiao was stunned. He had heard in his previous life that the 5-clawed divine dragon symbolized the emperor in ancient times. The dragon on the dragon robe also had 5 claws. The system said, In the world of martial arts, the 5-clawed divine dragon is called a divine beast, and is also the king of dragons. You mean, I hatched the fiery dragon's egg into a divine beast-level dragon? Jun Changxiao said. The system said, This is just a guess. There is no evidence to prove that it is a 5-clawed divine dragon. What if it evolves a few more times, and evolves into a fiery dragon? Jun Changxiao was speechless. He definitely didn't want such a thing to happen. After all, the difference between a divine beast-level dragon and a fiery dragon is huge. Gulp. The little dragon that had just finished evolving growled from its stomach. It looked at its master with a pitiful look. It was hungry. Let's go. Jun Changxiao said, Let's go eat. Swish. The little dragon took the first step and rushed to the outer courtyard's cafeteria with its 4 short legs. Because of its extreme speed, it was like a flash of fire. Damn, Jun Changxiao said in surprise. It ran so fast. The system said, After this little guy evolved, from the aura it emitted, it should have reached the level of middle stage. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Although he had the system and could forcefully increase his cultivation, he had to spend a lot of effort to complete the epic mission. This little guy only slept for a few months, and evolved once when it woke up. It was already comparable to a martial master. How enviable! Jun Changxiao was very happy with the little Longlong's awakening and evolution. But to Su Xiaoma and the others, it was a huge disaster, because there would be no meat to eat again. The word want was removed the next day. This was because when they arrived at the cafeteria, before they could even raise their chopsticks, little Longlong had already jumped onto the dining table, its 2 fiery red eyes constantly looking around. He seemed to be saying, I want to eat the meat in your bowls. The corners of Su Xiaoma and the others' mouths twitched. They willingly pushed all the dishes with meat over, and roared in their hearts. When is it going to hibernate again? Swoosh! Whoosh! Little Long Long opened its mouth, and gobbled up all the meat on the plate, before going to another table. After a few rounds, there were only vegetarian dishes left on each table. At this moment, Lu Qianqian walked in from outside. The half-full little dragon met the cold woman's gaze, and immediately remembered the pain of being controlled by the cold air. It quickly slipped away with its tail between its legs. Fortunately, the eldest senior sister could cure it. The next time they ate, Su Xiaoma and the others learned their lesson. As long as they saw Lu Qianqian go to the cafeteria, they would immediately follow. As expected, as long as the eldest senior sister appeared, little Long Long, who was acting like a tyrant, would quickly disappear. It was completely a formation that could not be provoked, and could only be avoided. Jun Changshao would not watch this little guy snatch the disciples' meat, so he ordered Lu Wanshi to cook for it alone. Sect Master. Lu Wanshi pouted and said, Little Long Long's appetite is too big. It eats 700 to 800 pounds of food in a day. So much? Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. With his current financial resources, it was no problem to feed little Long Long. However, the sect did not have much food stored, and there was a martial king guarding the mountain gate. How would he replenish it if it was all eaten? No, Jun Changshao said. We have to sneak around that guy and go down the mountain to buy enough food. Night. Jiangye was still standing in front of the mountain gate. His eyes were still bloodshot. He had been here for 2 days. During this period of time, he had bombarded the formation thousands of times, but he still could not shake it. Huff huff. Behind him, 10 Wuzong were panting. They were sent by the great branch leader to assist Jiangye in destroying the iron bone. They rushed over early in the morning, and knew that the iron bone was protected by a formation, so they bombarded it for 12 to 14 hours. Although there was a big gap between Wuzong and martial kings, 10 Wuzong were still comparable to a rank 1 martial king. Even after bombarding it for so long, they still could not do anything. It could be seen that the sect's protective formation was really strong. Jun Changshao felt even more comfortable. With such a powerful formation protecting him, he wished he could go out now and mindlessly cause trouble. After all, if he offended someone, he could just hide in the sect. Damn it, Jiangye said angrily. I've done so many missions and I've always completed them with the fastest speed. I didn't expect to be troubled by a small iron bone today. Lord, one of the Wuzong said, should we inform the great branch leader and send a formation master to break this formation? Jiangye rubbed his chin and said, since brute force is not enough, I can only rely on intelligence. Inform the great branch leader. Yes. One of the Wuzong retreated a few steps and made a complicated hand seal. He muttered something, and then saw a black light fly out. At this moment, Jiangye seemed to have sensed something and coldly laughed. Brat, you finally came out. At the cliff of the back mountain, Jun Changshao used the cloud-treading steps and jumped back and forth between the rocks. He needed to buy a large amount of food to feed the little dragon. The main gate was guarded by the demon fiend Sect's experts, and he could not send disciples to take risks. He could only secretly stay in the back mountain. The system said, there is something I must tell the host. Speak. Jun Changshao said as he jumped down. The system said, after entering the martial king realm, you can form spiritual sense that cannot be seen by the naked eye. From there, you can capture targets within a certain range and make them unable to hide. Jun Changshao stood on a rock, the corner of his mouth twitching as he said, you mean the martial king guarding the mountain gate will release spiritual sense to capture? Hoo-hoo! At this moment, a powerful force suddenly emerged from the foot of the mountain. Jiangye rushed up with a torrential air wave and coldly shouted, Brat, your time of death has come. Although he could not break the array, he still released his spiritual sense to cover the entire iron bone. If there was any movement, he would be able to catch it immediately. So, in the face of a martial king expert, the Type 88 sniper rifle was no longer a threat, because the moment the bullet was fired, it would be captured by the spiritual sense and dodged in advance. Fuck. Seeing Jiangye charge at him fiercely, the shocked Jun Changshao hurriedly turned back, roaring in his heart. Why didn't you say so earlier? The system said. I just remembered. Shwa. 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 Jun Changshao was really going all out. The cloud treading steps was instantly activated to the extreme, jumping left and right nonstop. Jiangye's face changed. This guy was only a second-stage Wuzong. The movement technique he used was not bad. With his current speed, he would definitely be able to catch up to him and return to the array first. While thinking, Jiangye stretched out his hands and put them together, opening his palms. A powerful spiritual energy quickly gathered together, flashing with a strange light as he said, Soul chasing life reaping. Xiao the light condensed between his palms rushed out from the bottom, dragging a long stream of light. Jun Changshao looked back and exclaimed, Fuck, is this Kamehameha? Shwa. Shwa. Time did not allow him to think too much. He could only desperately jump up until he reached the top of the mountain. The stream of light behind him was about to rush over. Ah! Sect leader Jun spat out his tongue like a mad dog and rushed into the array. But because he stuck out his butt, he was directly swept by the stream of light. Bang! Bang! The explosive energy slammed into the array formation's barrier. Chapter 309. Boom! Jiangye's soul-chasing attack hit the defensive barrier. Although it did not shake it, there was a loud sound. What's going on? Why is there such a big commotion? Let's go and take a look. The Ironbone disciples who had not slept rushed to the back of the mountain in groups, and came to the place where the sound came from. Gah! In an instant they were all dumbfounded, because the sect leader was lying on the grass with his butt sticking out. There was a big hole in his pants, showing his red and swollen skin. Sect leader! The disciples rushed over in alarm. Don't come over. Jun Changshao grimaced and said, I'll be fine after lying down for a while. Relying on the cloud treading steps, he tried his best to climb to the top of the mountain, but his butt was still swept. Under the impact of the force, he was directly sent into the formation. To be honest, he was a little embarrassed, but thanks to the energy wave, he was able to quickly enter the formation. After resting for a while, Jun Changshao stood up holding his butt and said, It hurt so much just from being swept. If I was hit directly, I would definitely be injured or killed. The system said, This is the strength of a martial king. Damn it! Jun Changshao's eyes flickered with anger. I must think of a way to play with that guy to death. Being hit on the butt and being seen by the disciples, how embarrassing was this? He must take revenge. At this moment, Little Dragon rushed over from afar. When it saw its master's swollen butt, its eyes immediately filled with anger. Roar! The little guy roared, and its body suddenly erupted with scorching flames. Its master was beaten. As a contract beast, it definitely could not tolerate it. The more Little Dragon thought about it, the angrier it became. The flames it spewed out spread to a range of 2 to 3 meters. Jun Changshao could feel its anger and comforted it. Don't worry, when Master becomes stronger, he will naturally go and beat him up. Master. Suddenly, a childish voice came from the flames. I'll go and beat him up now. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. The disciple's eyes almost popped out. A voice came from the flames. Could it be that Little Dragon is talking? That's impossible. Ta! Suddenly, a figure about a meter tall walked out of the scorching flames. Although he was naked, the flames just happened to cover the important part of his lower body. From its form, it looked like an 8 or 9-year-old child. However, his arms, chest, abdominal muscles, and even the muscles on his legs were very well developed. One look, and one could tell that he was a fitness expert. The skin of this person was crimson red, like burning charcoal. In that case, why did he put quotation marks on the word human? This was because it had the body of a human, but it had the head of a goat with 2 slightly curved horns. What was even more troublesome was, behind his buttocks was a thick and long tail with a cluster of flames burning crazily at the end. This wasn't a human. This was a monster. Jun Changshao and his disciples were all dumbstruck. Right at this moment, the scorching flames behind him began to converge, and soon disappeared without a trace. Jun Changshao didn't notice his own contracted beast, so the corner of his mouth twitched violently. You're the little dragon? Yes. The fiery red monster said with a tender voice. Master. Jun Changshao almost lost his footing and fell. The contracted beast actually turned into a human-like monster, and could even speak. Was he dreaming? Master. The little dragon said. This is my combat form after evolution, called dragon form. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. From the head, it doesn't look like a dragon form at all. Instead, it looks more like a goat. The little dragon said. I need to evolve a few more times before I can achieve true dragon form. The system said. Host, this dire beast that you hatched has mutated. If I'm not wrong, it should be a mirage beast. The so-called mirage beast was particular about the word mirage. For example, Peppa the wild boar looked like it didn't have much combat power, but it could transform into a beast and produce a powerful sound wave to intimidate the opponent. From the little dragon's first combat form, the system determined that this must be an illusion, thus achieving human form. Jun Changshao said, Little dragon, you're a mirage beast? Mirage beast? When the disciples heard this, they suddenly understood. If it was a mirage beast, it didn't seem too strange to transform from a dire beast to a human form. The little dragon said, My combat form can only last for 15 minutes, so I have to hurry up and get rid of the guy who hurt you. Jun Changshao said solemnly, The person who hurt me is a martial king. The little dragon's eyes flashed with human-like disdain. As long as it's not a peak martial king, I can torture him until he has nothing left to live for. Is that so? Jun Changshao said. Master. The little dragon said proudly, Do you want him alive or dead? Seeing how arrogant it was, Jun Changshao said, If you can torture him, beat him until he's half dead and then carry him back. Okay. The little dragon rushed toward the formation outside. The important parts of its lower body were covered by a cluster of flames. Don't go. Jun Changshao hurriedly said. In front of us is... Ah! The cry of falling into the cliff suddenly resounded in the sky. Jun Changshao, all the disciples, is this contract beast of mine reliable or not? Ta! Jiangye leaped a few times and landed steadily on the ground. The corner of his mouth raised into a sneer. Hid. My soul-chasing attack just now carried a force of 3 million jin. Even if it only hit your butt, you will definitely die or be injured. Jiangye was very confident in his own strength. He did not think that a second-stage Wuzong could withstand it. In fact, Jun Changshao's body was already quite strong after more than a year of tempering. Moreover, it was only a graze, so it was only a minor injury. Clap. Jiangye clapped his hands and said, When the leader sends a formation master to break the defensive formation, this king can easily take care of the iron bone. He covered his face and laughed strangely. Everything is under this king's control. Suddenly, a child's scream came from above. Boom! 5 meters away, something suddenly fell and kissed the ground, rolling up a cloud of dust. Jiangye, who was laughing strangely, was startled. The dust dispersed, and a human-shaped pit appeared on the ground. The corner of Jiangye's mouth twitched. Did someone take things too hard and jump off the cliff to commit suicide? He merged his spiritual sense into the pit and understood everything inside. He was stunned. Is this a human or a beast? As expected of a martial king powerhouse. Suddenly seeing the existence that looked like a human and a demon, he was only a little surprised and did not feel any panic. Clap! Little Long Long put one hand on the ground and climbed out of the pit in a sorry state. Damn it! It patted the dust off its body and covered its forehead. It broke down. It's the first time I used my combat form, and I did such a shameful thing. Hey! Jiangye said. Are you a human or a demon? Swoosh! Suddenly, Little Long Long appeared in front of him. Its fiery red eyes flashed with anger. I am a dragon man. So fast. Jiangye's expression changed, and he instinctively wanted to dodge. But it was too late. Little Long Long's seemingly tender little fists had already landed on his chest. Jiangye could rely on his spiritual sense to see it in advance, but there was no time to dodge. He couldn't even block it with his arms. Bang! An energy wave visible to the naked eye spread out from Jiang Xie's back, and he was sent flying, crashing into the mountain wall. Swoosh! Little Long Long rushed over. Its red arms waved crazily, launching a rainstorm of attacks. You hurt my master. You have nothing left to live for. Bang! 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 Dust filled the air, and gravel flew everywhere. The mountain wall suffered the bombardment of power, and cracked rapidly, spreading upward like a spider web. There was only one word to describe it: brutal. These 4 words were extremely brutal. P.S. Please vote. Chapter 310. After a round of crazy bombardment, at least 5 to 6 meters of the mountain wall was shattered and caved in. Swish! Little Long Long stopped and said indifferently, "This is the result of injuring my master." Jiangya was caved in the stone wall. His body was full of wounds, and his face was blasted into a pig's head. One word: miserable. He didn't say anything, because he had fainted after being beaten up. A martial king. He was directly beaten up. It was extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for Jun Changxiao's order to keep him alive, this king of Heljiang would probably have returned to his hometown. Just now, he said that everything was under control, but in the blink of an eye, he was beaten up. The speed of face slapping was simply too fast. There was no other way. Who would have thought that a demon who looked like an 8 or 9 years old child would have such terrifying strength? Jiangya was a second-rank martial king, but he was beaten up so miserably. Little Long Long's strength was at least comparable to a 5th or 6th-rank martial king, or even higher. Its combat form was so terrifying. Swish! Little Long Long grabbed one of Jiangya's feet and dug him out of the stone wall. Then it jumped up the cliff and landed on the top of the mountain. Just like that. The unconscious Jiangya was dragged into the iron bone by Little Long Long, and then thrown on the martial arts practice field. This, looking at the demon fiend sect expert, who was beaten up to the point that even his mother couldn't recognize him, Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. Counting the time, it had only been 10 minutes since his contract beast jumped off the cliff. A martial king was beaten to such a state. The speed was too fast. It was mainly because Jiangya was a bit resistant, and Little Long Long was beating him up more, so it hit him for a while longer. Otherwise, it would have been done in a few minutes. Master. Little Long Long raised its head and said in a childish voice, "Quickly praise me." Amazing, amazing. Jun Changxiao gave a thumbs up. To be able to beat a martial king so miserably, his contract beast was simply amazing. In order to increase the mutation rate, he almost spent all his fortune. Now it seemed that it was worth it. Little Long Long said seriously, "I won't be happy because of Master's praise." The corners of the disciples' mouths twitched. "If you're not overjoyed, why are you wagging your tail?" Boom! Suddenly, a crisp sound was heard. Little Dragonite returned to its normal form and lay on the ground like a limp loach. Although the battle form was very powerful, its weakness was that it could not be maintained for long. After returning to normal, it would also fall into a weakened state. Jun Changxiao walked over and hugged it in his arms. "Little fellow, you've worked hard." The little dragon was so weak that it didn't even have the strength to cry out. It could only lie on its master's body and close its eyes to rest. "Sect leader," Li Qingyang asked, "how do we deal with this guy?" "Seal the meridians." Jun Changxiao glanced at Jiangya and said indifferently, "Lock him up." Under normal circumstances, martial artists with low cultivation levels would never be able to get close to a martial king, let alone seal their chi meridians. But now, Jiangya was beaten half to death and was completely at the mercy of others. Therefore, Li Qingyang easily sealed the chi meridians, and even sealed more than 10 chi meridians on his body. It was absolutely foolproof. Just like that, Jiangya, who originally wanted to complete the mission early and go home to sleep, successfully entered the iron bone, but sadly became a prisoner. He was no longer king of Heljiang. He was now a genuine beggar Jiang. Little Long Long activated its battle form. Although it was terrifying, the side effects were also very great. The next day, it was still in a weak state, and didn't even have the slightest appetite. Jun Changxiao was very worried. The system said, after using the illusion technique, the mirage beast will enter different degrees of weakness according to the strength. Little Long Long can abuse the martial king, so it's normal for it to be weak for a long time. Jun Changshao relaxed and said with a cold gaze, injuring Laozi and making Little Long Long weak, that guy must not be let off easily. He must suffer a fate worse than death. In the sturdy cell, Jiangye was pressed against the wall. His hands and feet were bound by thick iron chains, and his head was half hung. The wounds on his body from Little Long Long's bombardment were still clearly visible. Being tortured so miserably, and having more than 10 chi meridians sealed, there was no need to use chains to bind him. But for the sake of a martial king, he had to be treated with high standards. After a while, sunlight shone in through the iron window and shone on Jiangye's eyes. His eyelids blinked slightly, and he gradually woke up from his coma. The moment he woke up, intense pain engulfed his heart, and his body felt as if it was about to fall apart. Jiangye, who was enduring the pain, recalled what happened earlier. He remembered that he was attacked by a monster that looked like a human and a demon, and then he lost his mind. Needless to say, he was knocked unconscious. Then where was he now? Enduring the pain from his body, Jiangye tried to raise his head and found that he was in a dark room. Only a ray of sunlight shone in through the window. Hua hua. As his limbs moved, the sound of the iron chains came. Jiangye instantly realized that he had become a prisoner. The anger in his heart suddenly rose, and he immediately activated his mental cultivation method. However, he could not get in touch with the spirit core. Damn it! Not only did he become a prisoner, but his chi meridians were also sealed. This was simply too cowardly. Bang! At this moment, the tightly shut iron door was kicked open. Jun Changshao walked in with a few disciples with a murderous aura. Sect leader, Su Xiaoma said, this guy is awake. Knock him unconscious again. Jun Changshao said coldly. He came here with only one purpose, and that was to use all his strength to torture this guy, to take revenge for yesterday's spanking. Yes. Su Xiaoma walked over, and without saying a word, he began to bombard Jiangye like a storm. The bombardment made Jiangye's face abnormally sinister. A martial king expert was very good at using spiritual energy. They could even cover their whole body to form a defense. Now that Jiangye's chi meridians were sealed, and his cultivation was gone, he was just a punching bag that was more resistant than an ordinary person. Therefore, after a round of torture, he, who was already extremely weak, lowered his head and fainted again. This was most likely due to anger. After all, as a martial king expert, he had never been humiliated by a low-level martial master. Hua! A basin of cold water was poured over, and Jiangye woke up again. Jun Changshao said indifferently, continue. Yes. In this way, in half an hour, Jiangye was beaten unconscious 5 times, and woken up 5 times by cold water. Although his whole body was in pain, he did not scream, showing that he was very strong. Jun Changshao was not surprised. After all, if a martial king screamed after being beaten a few times, it would be a loss of the demeanor of a strong expert. Little brat. After waking up again, Jiangye endured the pain, raised his wet head, and said with a sinister smile, If this is how you treat prisoners, then it is really very ordinary. Provoking me? Jun Changshao walked over, raised his right hand, and a cluster of flames immediately rose. He smiled coldly and said, Don't be anxious, the show has just begun. This is Jiangye said in shock. Ling long fire. Whoosh. A painful scream was transmitted in the cell, and it was hair-raising. Chapter 311. Jun Changshao did not doubt that if not for the sect protection formation, the guy called Jiangye would have rushed in and he and the sect would have been destroyed long ago. Therefore, he did not show any mercy in terms of torture, taking turns to use all kinds of torture. Especially the burning of the exquisite fire. It was the most cruel, burning Jiangye until he screamed in pain, leaving behind charred scars on his body. The martial king was also human. When the pain reached its peak, it would also scream out miserably. However, the martial king's will was extremely strong. After being burned by the exquisite fire, Jiangye woke up once again, and said with a sinister smile, Little brat. This kind of method this king can still. I can still bear it, Jun Changshao said indifferently. This is only the first day. After this, I will let you have a good time. With that he left with Su Xiaoma and the others. He had already been imprisoned, so he had plenty of time to play with him slowly. And so, for the next 3 days, Jiangye had to endure torture at every moment. If it was an ordinary person, their will would have already collapsed. Sect leader, Li Qingyang said. Why don't you give him a quick death? He was not sympathizing with an evil sect martial cultivator, but he was worried that if something unexpected happened, it would be troublesome. Jun Changshao sat in the study room, the back of his hand holding his chin, and said, This is a martial king. It would be a pity to kill him. What does sect leader mean? Li Qingyang said. Jun Changshao said, If we can destroy his will and control his soul source, it would be pretty good to stay in the sect as a servant. The martial king was still very strong. If he could take him for his own use, it would definitely be better than killing him, Li Qingyang said. The martial king has his dignity. Relying on torture to make him submit, I'm afraid it will be a bit difficult. That's right. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and said, After being tortured for so long, he is still very unyielding. It will be a bit difficult to control him. Wang. At this moment, the invisible array formation in the outside world suddenly appeared. At the entrance of the mountain, Ten Wuzong was very depressed. It's been 3 days since Milord went to the back of the mountain. Why hasn't he returned yet? Just as he was thinking, the Fiend Demon Sect's branch sent over 2 array masters. They couldn't wait for Jiangye, so they ordered them to infiltrate the defensive array formation and destroy it from the inside. Pooh. However, they just entered it when a terrifying force swept over, and it instantly shook their souls to the point they were dazed. Both of them retreated explosively and spat out blood. They suppressed their surging qi and blood as shock appeared in their eyes. This formation is too strange. I've studied it for decades, but I've never seen such a complicated formation. Both of them were experienced array masters who had set up and broken array formations countless times. However, after they infiltrated the sect protection formation, they were immediately stunned by the intricate lines and formations inside. There were traces to be found in any formation. However, the array formation standing on the iron bone was invulnerable. Even without the backlash from earlier, with their current cultivation, they wouldn't be able to break the formation, even if they studied it for a lifetime. The sect protection formation was something from Merchant City, and it was different from the Falling Star Continent's array system. It was impossible to break it. Jun Changshao didn't care about the formation's appearance, nor did he care about the people outside. Instead, he focused on how to subdue Jiangye. Although he could use torture to torture him, he couldn't break his strong willpower, so he had to use another method. Creak. The cell door was pushed open, and Lu Wancher walked in with a lunchbox. Looking at Jiangye, who was bound by thick chains and covered in injuries, she couldn't help but ask, Big brother, does it hurt? Jiangye lowered his head and didn't say anything. Lu Wancher put down the lunchbox and opened the lid. Instantly, the fragrant smell of food wafted out. Not bad. Jun Changshao planned to use delicious food to tempt him. Needless to say, Jiangye, who had been hungry for a few days, smelled the intoxicating fragrance, and his stomach started to rumble. Big brother, I'll put the food here. Lu Wancher placed the food in front of him, packed up the lunchbox and left. Clatter, clatter. Jiangye dragged the chains and walked over with difficulty. Because his hands were bound, he could only open his mouth to eat. He wasn't worried about the food being poisoned. After all, he was already a prisoner. If the other party wanted him to die, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Munch munch. Eating the food made by Lu Wancher, Jiangye felt like he was bathing in the mountains in the spring breeze. That feeling was too comfortable, too wonderful. Vaguely, he remembered when he was young, when he was hungry, his sister brought him to the restaurant in town to steal leftovers. Big sister, there's shredded meat. Big sister, there's an unfinished fish. Big sister, why aren't you eating? Big sister isn't hungry. When he was young, Jiangye didn't know that it wasn't that his sister wasn't hungry, but that she risked her life to steal food for him. Although he was eating leftovers, it was the most delicious and satisfying meal he had ever eaten in his life. Later, the matter was exposed, and the restaurant owner sent people to take his sister away. Jiangye was also beaten up and laid in a broken house for 3 days and 3 nights. From that day onwards, he and his sister were separated and never saw each other again. Later, because Jiangye had the opportunity to cultivate martial arts, he tied up the restaurant owner and found out that his sister was sold to a brothel in the city. That day, the flames burning in the restaurant couldn't compare to the anger in Jiangye's heart. "Big sister, I will definitely find you." After he was angry in the mountains, he went to the city, but that brothel had already closed several years ago. His sister's clues were cut off. For a long time, Jiangye spent his time asking and searching, but there was no progress. In the end, he could only join the Demon Fiend Sect and willingly become an evil sect member. Why? Because this organization had a strong intelligence network. However, even with the help of the powerful intelligence network of the Demon Fiend Sect, Jiangye still couldn't find his sister. This made him feel incomparable despair, and even wondered if his sister had already fallen. No. As long as there was no evidence, his sister must still be alive. He had to continue searching, even if he had to search for a lifetime. "Little Xia, although our parents are gone, but our home is still here. No matter how difficult the future is, we must live well." This was what his sister had said back then, and Jiangye had deeply remembered it in his heart. Therefore, after a long and fruitless search, he lived in Jiang Town, hoping that his sister, who was still alive, would one day return to this dilapidated home. Unfortunately, year after year of waiting, in exchange for year after year of no news, because of his sister's fetters, Jiangye, who could have been stronger, took a long time to break through to the martial king realm. The martial Dao was not important to him. If he could find his only family in this world, it didn't matter if he stopped forever. Lu Wansher's food reminded Jiangye of his painful past, making him eat while tears streamed down his face. "Damn!" Su Xiaoma stood outside, the corner of his mouth twitching. Du's food made the martial king cry. Jun Changshao said, "Food is the most important thing for the people. Even a martial king can't resist the temptation of delicious food. If we let him eat for a few more days, he will definitely surrender." The two of them didn't know that this wasn't because of the food, but because of the scenery. 3 days later, he opened the prison door and entered, sitting on the chair prepared by the disciples. Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and said, "Hand over your soul source and become this seat's servant. I can let you live." Jiangye hadn't been tortured these past few days, and he had been fed. Although he still didn't have any strength, his spirit was very good. He laughed strangely and said, "Brat, do you think that with just a few meals, you can make this king submit? You don't agree? I am the king of martial arts. How can I bend my waist for 5 bushels of rice?" Chapter 312. All right. Jun Changshao got up and left. Then he cut off the food supply and began to destroy his willpower mentally. He thought that he could use delicious food to control Jiangye. But in fact he guessed wrong. Because that guy hadn't eaten for a few days, his willpower was still very strong. Lu Wansher's delicacies were indeed very tempting. But as the king of martial Dao, he naturally had the pride of a king of martial Dao. How could a black and 2 black martial disciples compare to him? Of course, Jiangye still missed it. Sect leader Su Xiaoma scratched his head and said, "This guy is very hard. Do you want to continue torturing him?" Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, "It's impossible to destroy his willpower by relying on external forces. Right now, we can only slowly consume it." Lu Wansher said, "Sect leader, let him eat something. What if he starves to death?" Jun Changshao said, "Send some food in." Lu Wansher took the lunchbox and went in. Jiangye didn't stand on ceremony and ate it clean. As long as it was food, he would eat it. But want this king to submit? Absolutely impossible. Such a tough bone made Jun Changshao feel even more troubled. In the end, he could only choose to continue being imprisoned and prepare for the first great competition. As for the experts of the Devil Fiend sect outside, because they couldn't break the formation and couldn't see Jiang Yu return, they could only stand in front of the mountain gate and look at each other helplessly. Even though 5 days had passed, little Long Long was still in a weak state, and his appetite had greatly decreased. It could be seen that although this kind of strength that suddenly possessed the strength to oppress a martial king was very powerful, the side effects were also very tragic. Someone would ask, since little Long Long was so awesome, why would he be afraid of Lu Qianqian? The reason was very simple. The first time he was frozen, it left an indelible psychological shadow in the little guy's heart. It was almost time for the great competition. Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, and the other outer sect disciples were cultivating with all their might, hoping to enter the inner sect. Firstly, they could prove their strength, and secondly, they could obtain more resources. Xiao Ziji, Yi Xingchen, and the others were completely focused on the Tower of Experience and their cultivation. They were completely oblivious to what was happening outside. After Jun Changshao was done with the preparations for the intersect tournament, he opened the system attribute panel once again. It had been 10 days since the middle-grade sect protection formation was activated, and he had burned 100 contribution points. No. Jun Changshao frowned and said, the people of the Demon Fiend sect have been guarding the mountain gate. If this drags on for a year or so, the contribution points will definitely be used up. With the sect protecting formation, they could sit back and relax. But without contribution points to activate it, it was definitely going to die. The system said. So the host should quickly think of a way to get rid of the Demon Fiend sect. Otherwise, even if you can hide for a while, you won't be able to hide forever. At this time, Jun Changshao tapped on the beginner's shop and said, we can only place our hopes on this. Hopefully, we'll be able to find even more powerful firearms. The system said, you might as well buy a mid-tier item from the mall. Jun Changshao also wanted to, but 1,000 points was too expensive. If he couldn't solve the problem, the remaining contribution points wouldn't be able to support him for long. He didn't refresh the mall immediately. Instead, he first burned incense and took a bath praying. It was done very formally, and also very metaphysically. Everything was ready. He directly pulled down. Then the tragedy began. He refreshed 5 times in a row, and spent 100 contribution points. There wasn't a single useful item, but he did get a lot of daily necessities. With the extra 1 point of luck value, I can't feel his existence at all. Calm down, calm down. I'll refresh another 100 points. If I really can't get anything good, I'll decisively choose to give up. Jun Changshao restrained his thoughts and pulled down the mall again. The 6th item that appeared was still a pile of dispensable daily necessities. Just as Jun Changshao was about to continue refreshing, the last item made his eyes light up. It was a product called the Battle Exemption Card, and its shape was similar to a token. Click on the Details item, Battle Exemption Card. Effect. Write the name of the enemy force behind the Battle Exemption Card, and can forcibly avoid fighting with the other party for 3 months. Disadvantage. Can only be purchased once in the mall. Price. 200 contribution points. After reading the introduction, Jun Changshao almost jumped up and said, this thing is good. Although it could only avoid fighting for 3 months. Although it could only be bought once. It could undoubtedly provide a certain amount of time for the sect. The system said, this is the credit of 1 point of luck value. Otherwise, the host would never have this kind of product in the beginner's mall. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, you're really good after the fact. The point was on the purchase. Ding! The host has spent 200 contribution points and obtained the Battle Exemption Card X1. It has been transferred into the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points. 1285200. Jun Changshao didn't use it for the time being. Instead, he took advantage of his good luck and refreshed the mall again. Needless to say, there really was something good. The second item in the first row was still a token-shaped product. Its name was Surrender Order. Click on the Details item, Surrender Order. Effect. Raise the surrender order and shout the word surrender towards the captured target. You can force the other party to submit. Disadvantage. Can only recruit the captured target once. Martial Disciple and Martial Master for 3 months. Wuzong and Martial King for 2 months. Wu Huang for 1 month. Wu Sheng and above for 2 months. Price. 200 contribution points. Jun Changxiao was startled and immediately said in joy, I was just worried that I wouldn't be able to subdue that tough bone. The system said, this item can only recruit the Martial King for 2 months. Jun Changxiao said, not to mention 2 months. Even if it's 1 month, as long as I use it well, I can make him willing to become my servant. The system was silent. Ding! Host has spent 200 contribution points and obtained the surrender order X1. It has been transferred into the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points. 10752000. After buying the surrender order, Jun Changxiao did not refresh it again. After all, there were only 1,000 points left, so he would keep it for emergencies. Then, should I use the battle exemption card first? Or should I recruit that guy first? Jun Changxiao thought for a moment and decided to recruit them first. After all, the Devil Fiend sect only sent a dozen or so people, so the problem wasn't too big. Not to mention, if he could recruit that Martial King and make him listen to his orders, he could make good use of it and try his best not to use the battle exemption card. Inside the cell, Lu Wancher brought food over again. She blinked her big round eyes and said, Big brother, why don't you compromise? Humph, Jiangye said indifferently. A mere trash sect wants me to be a servant. It's simply wishful thinking. Lu Wancher said, You don't have to be a servant. You can be a disciple of our iron bone. Jiangye said in disdain, Little girl, do you think that a sect can accommodate a great Buddha like this king? Although his words were a bit arrogant, from a normal point of view, it was indeed unbearable. After all, even in a fifth-rate sect, there were very few Martial King level experts. Lu Wancher said, Although our iron bones level is not high, it is a very warm family. When you integrate into it, you will definitely like it very much. Big family? Jiangye laughed coldly. It's just a sect, no matter how warm it is. How can it be compared to my own home? He secretly added in his heart, even if it's tattered. Creak. Jun Changxiao pushed open the door and walked in, and said, Have you considered it for the past few days? Kid, Jiangye said proudly. Do you think that you can use torture and delicacies to make this king submit? You're really underestimating me, Jiangye. You don't agree? Jun Changxiao said. Jiangye vowed. If you have any methods, just use them. If this king submits, I will take your surname from today onwards. Chapter 313. Jiangye was unyieldingly defending the dignity of a martial king. Fine. Jun Changxiao had completely lost patience with him. He raised his right hand and took out a warm surrender order from his space ring. Kikik. Seeing the 2 words surrender engraved on the command token, Jiang Xia laughed strangely and said, Kid, what are you singing? Surrender. Jun Changxiao said indifferently. Xiao. The 2 words surrender on the token flickered with a white light. A beam of light instantly flew out and accurately entered Jiang Xia's forehead. Ga. His smile froze. Call for surrender. Call for surrender. Call for surrender. The sound kept lingering in his ears. Jiang Ye's face gradually became ferocious. An irresistible force was crazily spreading in his body. It began to control his thoughts and forced him to lower his noble head. In the end, he gritted his teeth unwillingly and said, Servant Jiang Xia greets the Lord. He swore that he didn't want to say it, but his thoughts and mouth didn't listen to him and came out. Lu Wancher was shocked. Just now, he had stubbornly told her that Iron Bone was trash and couldn't hold a god like him. How did he become a servant in a blink of an eye and greet master? That's right. He had just said that if he surrendered, he would take the sect leader's surname. Wouldn't he be called Jun Xia in the future? Jiang Ye didn't consider whether his surname would be Jiang or Jun. Instead, he roared in his heart. Who can tell me what is going on? Kaka. The chains were removed and he was free. Jiang Ye wanted to raise his weak hand and slap his own face, but he cupped his hands and said with difficulty, Thank you, master. Thank my ass. That's not what I wanted to say. At that moment, Jiang Ye's thoughts were very clear. But there was a special force that forced him to listen to Jun Changshao. This was the surrender order in the merchant city. No matter how unyielding you are, no matter how strong you are, no matter how strong you are, as long as you are bound by the power of surrender, you can only obey the orders of the user. There is no reason at all. Unfortunately, since he couldn't erase the rebellious thoughts, he could only forcefully control them. Even though Jiang Ye had no choice but to listen to Jun Changshao, he was still unconvinced. This is what it means to have my body, but not my soul. Jun Changshao didn't care. As long as the other party obeyed his orders, even if it was just a short month, he was confident that he could influence the other party and make the other party willingly become his servant. Come. Jun Changshao sat on a chair with one leg crossed over the other and said, "Tell me everything about the demon fiend sect targeting my Ironbone sect." If it was in the past, Jiang Ye would definitely not say anything, but the special power controlled his body and mind, so he blurted out everything. It was very clear and detailed. He couldn't help but be surprised. When did he become so fluent in his speech? From Jiang Ye, Jun Changshao learned that this was a mission issued by the leader of the Yangzhou branch in the southwest. They were to destroy Ironbone and bring back the saber with the weapon spirit. However, he frowned. That's it. I've been living in seclusion in Jiangjia town, so I don't know much about the branch. Jiang Ye was crying in his heart. He really didn't want to say these words, but he couldn't control his mouth. Oh, Jun Changshao was surprised. Why do you want to live in seclusion in Jiangjia town? An arrogant martial king who didn't enjoy the high standard treatment and chose to live in seclusion in a town. This was definitely a person with a story. Because it's my home, Jiang Ye said with difficulty. Home. Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and said, "Please tell me your story." Jiang Ye's story was very complicated. He had never told anyone, and even the leader didn't know much about his past. Now, under the control of the power to summon him, he started from his childhood, talked about his sister who had lost contact with him, and also talked about why he wanted to live in seclusion in Jiangjia town. After Lu Wanshur finished listening, she wiped her tears and said, "Big brother, you're so pitiful." Jiang Ye was silent. After talking about his past, although he was angry, his suppressed state of mind was released. Jun Changshao thought, I thought he was a disciple of the demon fiend sect. It turns out that he was only temporarily attached to the sect and used the intelligence agency to find his family. This person's strength is not bad, and he's not a real evil sect. The host can try to recruit him as an elder of the sect. The system recommended. Jun Changshao said, I thought of the same thing. After learning about Jiang Ye's story, he really did have the thought of recruiting him and appointing him as an elder. After all, a martial king was qualified to take this position. Facts have proven it. Jun Changshao said, even if you attached yourself to the demon fiend sect, you still couldn't find your sister. In the end, you became their killing tool. Jiang Ye smiled bitterly and said, it can be considered as using each other. Jun Changshao said, have you ever considered using another method to find your sister? What method? Jiang Ye said. Just by saying it casually, his eyes flashed with a hopeful light, which made Jun Changshao believe that his sister was very important in his heart. This was his weakness. Since he knew, if he didn't persuade him, what kind of sect master was he? What kind of transmigrator was he? Jun Changshao leaned forward and said, join my Ironbone sect and become a member. I'll help you find your long-lost family. Under normal circumstances, Jiang Ye would definitely say disdainfully, even a third-rate sect can't do it. How can a trash sect find her? Limited by the power of control, he said with difficulty, Master can help me find my sister. Jun Changshao said, you may think that I'm lying, but in fact in the Falling Star continent, I, Jun Changshao, can do things that others can't. For example, he paused and said, you are a martial king with a strong will. Why would you bow down to me? These words made Jiang Ye silent. He still had the ability to think independently. He was still thinking. Why did he submit to him uncontrollably even though he didn't want to? Some kind of sorcery? Impossible. Impossible. Although he wasn't the most orthodox martial cultivator of the evil sect, he had been in contact with such people for a long time. He had never heard of any sorcery that could forcibly control others. Of course. Jun Changshao stood up and said, that alone won't be enough to convince him. Once you take this pill, you should be able to fully realize how extraordinary I am. As he spoke, he threw a mid-grade healing pill. This was an order. Although Jiangye was unwilling, he took the pill directly after receiving it. Whoosh! The pill took effect, and the damaged meridians were quickly healed. Even the skin that was bombarded and burned recovered quickly in the blink of an eye. Jiangye's eyes were filled with shock. He had many healing pills in his space ring, but he had never seen such a pill that could quickly recover after taking it. He had heard of it. Jiang Xie said in disbelief. The medicinal pill that Lord gave, could it be the healing pill refined by the AI family? That's not right. As far as he knew, that kind of pill was only limited to low grade and couldn't treat martial kings. Jun Changshao said, my pill is 1 grade higher than the AI family's healing pill. Jiangye's mouth twitched. Since when were pills that could quickly heal injuries so common? Or was it that he had been living in seclusion for too long and was isolated from the outside world? Chapter 314. P.S. The 4 chapters that were updated at midnight yesterday were sent in the wrong order, and the content has been modified. Those who did not update immediately can try to clear the cache, or delete this book, and add it to the bookshelf to read the latest content. Jiangye did not think that he was alone, because he would do missions every once in a while, and had some understanding of the matters of the Jianghu. He had never heard of this kind of pill that could quickly heal injuries, and was suitable for the martial king level. I can control you and also have pills that can heal injuries. Jun Changshao crossed his arms and smiled. You should have some understanding of my extraordinariness, right? More than understanding. Jiangye was shocked. Yi Xingqian, who was reborn as a martial emperor, was still guessing that Jun Changshao might be from the upper realm, not to mention that he was a martial king. Master is extraordinary, Jiangye said seriously. The word master had the power to summon him, and extraordinary was his original intention. Forcefully controlling him, and having a pill that could heal him quickly. This was too strange. Jun Changshao said. So instead of helping the evil in the Demon Fiend sect, why don't you abandon the dark and join my Iron Bone Sword sect? He could directly order Jiangye to join Iron Bone. But after all, it was only for a month. Once he regained his freedom, he would leave, and he would not be able to stay. If he wanted him to join the sect, he would have to be loyal. Of course, Jun Changshao added. If you join, I can appoint you as an elder. Master can really help me find my sister? If Jiangye cared about his position and wealth, he would not live in a dilapidated house. He only cared about his sister, who was his only family in this world. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, I can't guarantee that I can definitely find your family. A trace of pain appeared in Jiangye's eyes. But, Jun Changshao said again, you have been in the Demon Fiend sect for so long, and there is no news. Why don't you come to my Iron Bone and give it a try? Trees die when they move, people live when they move. You should understand this principle. Sect leader Jun's words to win people over were one after another. Furthermore, he didn't promise that he would find it. It was just that he couldn't be fixated on one place. When there was no hope, he had to know how to be flexible. Jiangye was silent. No matter how many times he searched, there was no news of him. He became more and more disappointed with the Devil Fiend sect, and thought of leaving. However, this was a sect that had information all over the provinces and counties. After leaving, who would be able to find them? The Starfall continent was so vast. Jiangye did not think that he could find his family in the sea of people by himself. Not to mention King Wu, even Wu Huang couldn't do it, unless a martial emperor. This kind of supreme existence could travel thousands of miles in the blink of an eye, so it was naturally easy for them to find someone. Jun Changshao said, the human heart is very complicated. You want to use the Demon Fiend Sect's intelligence agency to find your long-lost sister, but they may not be sincere in helping you. This sentence was very lethal, and Jiangya was stunned on the spot. Jun Changshao said, "If I were the head division leader, in order to keep a killing tool like you, even if I really got the news, I would definitely not tell you." Jiangya clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger. It was not impossible. Jun Changshao caught the change in his eyes and said, "I am not trying to sow discord. You should know the style of the evil sect better." He was clearly trying to sow discord, but he still said it with an innocent face. No one else could do this. Phew! Jiangya exhaled. After a fierce struggle in his heart, he murmured, "If a tree moves, it will die. If a person moves, he will live. If this road is blocked, it's not impossible to change the road." He was tempted, not because of the power to recruit. Shua. Jun Changshao took out the entry form and placed it on the table, saying seriously, "I will make it clear in advance. Once you enter the Iron Bone, you will always be an Iron Bone person. You can't be different for a year or a day." He did not want this guy to move to his sect, and then move to another place. Jiangya laughed. "Master, please be at ease. The one who decided to stay is not me but this sect. If I am not controlled, then let me stay in the Iron Bone forever? Sure, but it depends on whether this sect has the value of letting me stay." Jun Changshao held the pen and said, "Name." Jiangya. Pa. After writing, he stamped the sect leader's seal. Ding. Sect member. 100120000. Ding. Sect contribution. 12862000. Jun Changshao said, "From today onwards, you are a disciple of the Iron Bone clan." Jiangya was stunned. Only asking for his name after joining the sect, wasn't this too careless? Thinking back, in order to sneak into the Demon Fiend sect, he was interrogated for a long time before finally passing with difficulty. Xiaomo. Jun Changshao said, "Release his meridians." Yes. Su Xiaoma walked in from outside and released the sealed meridians for Jiangya. He grinned. "Before we were enemies, now we are from the same sect. Don't mind the past." Jiangya was instantly angry. He remembered that the second day he was captured, he was beaten up by him. If it wasn't for the sect leader's sake, spirit energy would have flowed through his meridians. He would have already exploded and beaten this guy up. Just like that, Jiangya joined the Iron Bone clan. He was not a Demon Fiend sect disciple, so he did not have any psychological burden. But what Jun Changshao needed to consider was how to make the sect leader temporarily give up on targeting his sect. "I'll leave it to you," he said. Jiangya's mouth twitched. "I am just one of their fighters. Although I have a bit of status, it is impossible to change the sect leader's mind." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Although this is difficult, you just need to stall for time as much as possible." "I'm just giving it a try," Jiangya said. The Demon Fiend sect had their eyes on the Iron Bone clan. Unless the higher-ups withdrew the order, the sect leader would not stop. And the only thing he could do was stall for time. As for how to stall, that was a problem. Jun Changshao said, "You can return with injuries and tell the sect leader that the Iron Bone clan is not only protected by formations, but there are also powerhouses overseeing it. They will beat you up." Jiangya murmured, "This method is not bad, but I am not injured." "Very simple." Jun Changshao looked at him and said in a serious tone, "Then let's beat you up again." Jiangya's mouth twitched violently. "Come," Jun Changshao said, "take back all the spirit energy." He had to get rid of the Demon Fiend sect as soon as possible, so he could not wait to beat Jiangya up, so that he could report back. "Can you be gentler? You have to hit harder, otherwise you will be exposed." Jiangya's heart collapsed. If he had known earlier, he would not have taken the healing pill, because the injuries were absolutely real. Now, after recovering quickly, he had to be beaten up again. Although he was a martial king and his body was strong, being beaten up all the time was too sullen. Bang! 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 After a round of crazy violence, the pitiful king of Heljiang was once again reduced to a beggar. Moreover, because he did not use spirit energy to protect his body, he was heavily injured and almost had no strength to walk. Jun Changshao didn't treat Jiang Xia unfairly. When Jiang Xia was walking down the cliff, he gave him a mid-grade healing pill, and a body sculpting pill. He also warned him, after you return, take them when your injuries are healed. Chapter 315. Jiangye had rolled and crawled down the cliff, which had undoubtedly aggravated his injuries. He had done this on purpose. After all, since he was acting, he had to do it well. He couldn't let the suspicious big branch leader see any flaws. Sect Master. On the top of the mountain, Li Qingyang said worriedly, "What if he doesn't come back?" Jun Changxiao said, "If he cares about his lost relatives, he will definitely come back after taking the body-shaping pill." Why was he so sure? It wasn't because of the control of the subduing force, but because of the improvement of the physical body brought by the body-shaping pill. It would definitely make him realize how extraordinary he was. "Let's wait for Jiangye to come back," Jun Changxiao said. "My iron bone will have a martial king elder." Su Xiaoma said with a bitter face, "Sect Master, I have beaten him many times. If he becomes an elder, how will he live in the future?" Jun Changxiao said, "Didn't you also beat Xingchen? Aren't you still alive and kicking now? That guy came from the Demon Fiend Sect. How can he be compared to junior brother Yi?" Su Xiaoma said, "If this guy knew that Yi Xingchen was a martial emperor in his previous life and killed people like flies, he would definitely change his mind and think that Jiangye looked more gentle." Jun Changxiao whispered, "Our iron bone should be able to live peacefully for a while." Outside the mountain gate, the 10 Wuzong and 2 formation masters were still there. At first, they wanted to break the formation, but now they were purely waiting for Jiangye. After all, he had disappeared for several days. It's been more than 10 days. Why hasn't Lord returned yet? Could he have encountered some trouble? Impossible. Lord is a martial king in Azure Sun County, who can cause trouble for him. The more they discussed, the more anxious they became. The disciples of the Demon Fiend Sect never dreamed that Jiangye would be captured by the Iron Bone, let alone be subdued. Plop. At this moment, a sound came from behind. Everyone was shocked. They turned around and saw a black-clothed cultivator covered in blood lying on the stairs. "Yes, sir." One of the Wuzong men recognized him. Everyone hurriedly rushed over and helped the heavily injured Jiangye up. Oh my God! In the Azure Sun County, there was really someone who could injure the Lord. Iron Bone has an expert," Jiangye said weakly. Hurry back to the branch. Shua. The Demon Fiend Sect disciple did not hesitate at all and hurriedly carried him away. To be able to beat a martial king into such a state, an Iron Bone expert must be very terrifying. Jun Changxiao sat in the main hall. Seeing the Demon Fiend Sect's group leave, the corners of his mouth curled up in a smile. Good acting. If Jiangye knew about this, he would definitely break down. "I'm not acting. I'm seriously injured from your abuse." Southwest Yangzhou Demon Fiend Sect Branch Headquarters. When the Great Branch Master saw that Jiangye was heavily injured and carried back, the first thing he did was to order an apothecary to treat his injuries. When the injuries stabilized, he personally came to ask, "How did you get injured so badly? Who injured you?" Jiangye said weakly, "I was injured by an old man. In my judgment, his cultivation is either peak martial king or Wu Huang." What? The Great Branch Master was shocked. Wu Huang. Not to mention Azure Sun County. Even the Heavenly Mandate Royal City in southwest Yangzhou might not have such an expert. "Are you sure?" the Great Branch Master questioned. Jiangye said, "The opponent's aura was too strong. I couldn't see through it at all. However, when he attacked, he clearly didn't use his full strength, but I couldn't fight back at all." The Great Branch Master fell into deep thought. He had examined Jiangye's injuries. Although they were serious, they were not caused by a powerful attack. "It seems," he murmured, "that person didn't want to take your life." "Yes," Jiangye said. "Before the old man left, he said to spare my life and not to harass Iron Bone in the future." The Great Branch Master frowned. "That expert has something to do with Iron Bone?" "I'm not sure," Jiangye said. "Some words couldn't be said too directly. Only by being vague could they have a better effect." The Great Branch Master held his chin and said with a serious gaze, "It seems that it's necessary to contact headquarters and send Wu Huang over." Jiang Xie groaned in his heart. If headquarters really sent Wu Huang over, Iron Bone would definitely be in danger. Great Branch Master. At this moment, a subordinate walked in and said, "There's a new message from headquarters." The Great Branch Master took the special message from headquarters. After glancing at it, he sneered. The Taikuan sect actually dares to have ideas about our demon fiend sect's mind. They are quite bold. The Taikuan sect? Jiang Ye said in surprise. It seems to be a third-rate sect. The Great Branch Master said, Headquarters asked my Southwest Yangzhou Branch Master to send reinforcements. The matter of Iron Bone will temporarily come to an end. As for you, return to Jiangjia town to recuperate. Saying this, he got up and was about to leave. Great Branch Master, Jiang Ye said, is there any news about the person I'm looking for? There's no news for now. The Great Branch Master said this and hurriedly left. Jiang Ye had asked this question countless times, and the Great Branch Master had answered countless times. After listening to Jun Changxiao's attempt to drive a wedge between them, the Great Branch Master realized that this seemed to be impatiently brushing him off. Jiang Ye, you and the Demon Fiend sect only have an employment relationship. If you're not a member of their sect, how could they sincerely help you find someone? Even without Jun Changxiao's persuasion, Jiang Ye was thoroughly disappointed in the Demon Fiend sect. Leaving was a matter of time. Speaking of which, he really had to thank the Supreme Earth sect. If he hadn't suddenly interfered to seize the Demon Fiend sect's mine, the Great Branch Master definitely wouldn't have let it go. The next day, Jiang Ye dragged his weak body back to Jiangjia town and returned to his dilapidated home. It was strange. Every time he went out to do a mission, he would be very anxious. However, after returning home, he would be unusually calm. Whoosh! Lying on the bed, he took out a medial-grade healing pill and swallowed it. His injuries quickly healed, and he was full of energy, shocking Jiang Ye once again. With such a miraculous pill, this Iron Bone sect master is really not simple. He took out the body-shaping pill and muttered, I hope he has a way to help me find my long-lost family. Saying this, he swallowed the pill. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, the meridians, blood, and skin in his body were strengthened. As his physical body improved, his strength also increased. Whoosh! Jiang Ye jumped up from the bed and clenched his fists. He felt nearly 200,000 jin more strength than before, and his eyes were filled with shock. The effect of the body-shaping pill was that during the channel opening stage, it would be strengthened as one's cultivation increased. When a high-level martial artist took it, they would directly recover their strength. When a rank 2 martial king took it, their strength would directly increase by 200,000 jin. This seemed terrifying, but it was actually normal. After all, an ordinary rank 2 martial king could casually explode with more than 1,000,000 jin of strength. However, Jiang Ye couldn't control himself. He had a high-grade spiritual root and was a high-level martial king. The normal strength of a rank 2 martial king was around 1.7 million jin. Now that it increased by 200,000 jin, he was very close to the extreme level. This was only because of a single pill. What shocked Jiang Ye even more was not the increase in strength, but the increase in his physical body. One had to know that at his level, his muscles were already fixed. Unless he relied on spiritual power, there was no way to increase his foundation. What I ate? He was a bit confused. Is it a pill or an elixir? No. Jiang Ye stood up from the bed and said gravely, I have to return to the Iron Bone sect. After seeing the effects of the medial-grade healing pill and the power of the body-shaping pill, he would return without hesitation, even if he had to remove the force of surrender. That night, Jiang Ye left Jiangjia town. He arrived at the Iron Bone sect after daybreak. It was the day of the first intersect tournament. Chapter 316. Iron Bone's first intersect competition began today. Thousands of disciples were wearing clean school uniforms and lined up neatly on the martial arts practice field. The disciples who joined the sect earlier had a higher cultivation base, and their aura was slightly stronger. Although the new disciples were not as strong as their senior brothers, they all held their heads high. Being able to defeat a colossus like the Sacred Spring sect made the Ironbone disciples more confident, so their spirit was also very strong. Jiangya, who rushed over overnight, was stunned when he saw the disciples gathered at the martial arts practice field. Was this a sect? No, it was more like a sect. Why did Jiangya have this feeling? This was because the disciples of the Ironbone faction were all brimming with confidence and vigor. Looking at the determination in their eyes, Jiangya seemed to see himself who had obtained an opportunity and was constantly working hard to cultivate in order to find his family. Sect leader Li Qingyang said, "Junior brother is back." Jun Changshao, who was standing in the main hall, said, "From today onwards, you will have to call him elder." He didn't directly appoint Jiangya as a disciple, because the other party definitely didn't really see him as a member of the sect. Now that he had returned, it meant that he had acknowledged him. "Let's welcome the elder of our Ironbone sect home with a warm round of applause," Jun Changshao said in a clear voice. Clap, clap, clap. All the disciples turned around and gave him a warm round of applause. "Go home." These two words made Jiangya feel a lot of emotions. After a while, he walked to the front of the main hall and cupped his hands. Disciple Jiangya greets the sect leader. This was not the power to summon him, but from the bottom of his heart, because Jiangya wanted to know if Ironbone could become his second home. Jun Changshao didn't immediately start the first inter-sect competition. Instead, he announced in public that Jiangya would be appointed as an elder from today onwards. It was normal for a sect to have elders. For example, the Wuxia sect had more than 20 elders alone. However, Ironbone was a bit valiant. The first elder of the sect was actually a martial king. Even fifth-rate sects like the Sacred Spring sect and the Tsongshan sect didn't have an elder of this level. A martial king expert becoming an elder of a seventh-rate sect was extremely rare in the entire Starfall continent. If this news spread out, it would definitely cause a great commotion. Again, not bad. During the period when Jun Changshao returned, the news of him winning 74 matches against the Sacred Spring sect had already spread throughout the various counties and set off a shocking storm. Ironbone clan? A seventh-rate fighter challenging a fifth-rate fighter? And he even won. And he hadn't lost a single match. If it weren't for the fact that the news was too sensational, and if it weren't for the fact that the various forces had witnessed it with their own eyes, many martial artists would have even suspected that it was a rumor or a malicious hype. Ironbone was only slightly famous in the Azure Sun County after defeating the 6th-stream Wuxia sect. Defeating the 5th-rate Holy Spring sect was enough to make one's name known in all the counties. After all, it was unheard of for a low-tier sect to defeat a major sect on the Starfall continent. It was definitely worthy of being recorded in the annals of history. When the news spread to Qingyang County, it also caused a huge commotion. Unbelievable, unbelievable. I originally thought that Ironbone was courting death. I didn't expect him to actually defeat the Sacred Spring sect. How did an inconspicuous sect become so powerful in such a short period of time? The martial artists in Qingyang County were also in a heated discussion. Moreover, many parents and forces were quite tempted. They were considering whether to send their children to the Ironbone sect. At the beginning, many people had heard that Jun Changshao was recruiting disciples. However, very few dared to send their children over, because they were afraid of the Wuxia sect. But now, the Sacred Spring sect had already been defeated by Ironbone clan. There was no need to be afraid of the Wuxia sect, or the 100 Sect Alliance. Without a doubt, as long as Jun Changshao opened the sect, it would be very easy for him to recruit disciples. Of course, he didn't have any plans for the time being. Instead, he officially announced the start of the first intersect tournament of the Ironbone clan. This intersect tournament was all-inclusive, and any disciple could participate. However, according to their cultivation and strength, they were divided into 4 groups, A, B, C, and D. Group D was weaker. Group A was the strongest. Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, Song Xianzhou, and the other disciples who went to challenge the Sacred Spring sect all signed up for Group A. The other disciples were in the other 3 groups according to their strength. Without a doubt, Group A, which was the strongest, was the highlight of the intersect tournament of the Ironbone clan. It was also the key to whether a disciple could become an inner disciple. In the other three groups, if disciples performed well, they would also receive corresponding rewards. The rules were changed by Jun Changshao at the last minute. After it was set, it would be used for the inter-sect tournament every year. Without any experience, developing the sect was like crossing the river by feeling the stones. Therefore, things wouldn't be set so professionally from the beginning. It was normal for there to be frequent changes. Boom! Boom! On the martial arts field, 2 rank 2 and 3 martial disciples were fighting fiercely. They used rupturing fist, mountain-splitting palm, and even self-chop. It was quite a lively fight. These were the participants of Group D who went first. Their cultivations were generally rank 2 and 3 martial disciples. Although the fight was in full swing, it wasn't exciting. However, Jiang Ye and Elder Jiang, who were watching the fight, were deeply shocked. After a few fights, the disciples who went on stage seemed to have average aptitudes. However, their explosive power was comparable to that of a middle or high-level martial disciple. Only martial artists with middle or high aptitudes could have a middle or high level of explosive power. Most of the disciples who went on stage had mortal spiritual roots. How could they have such terrifying combat power? About 2 hours later, Group D ended and Group C began. The participants who went on stage also had a middle or high level of explosive power. Jiang Ye was a little confused. He tried hard to find the ordinary participants in the fight, but he couldn't find a single one. In other words, the 1,000 disciples who stood on the martial arts field not only had a strong aura, but also had real abilities. Elder Jiang, Jun Changshao said, "These disciples are not bad, right?" Jiang Ye said with a serious expression. "Although their cultivation is a little low, their strength is all in the middle or high level. Their future is limitless." It was not flattery but the truth. It was no wonder that the more professional Yangzhou certification headquarters in the southwest would give them a top 3 evaluation. 2 hours later, the third group battle ended, and the participants who obtained the first few places naturally received the corresponding resources and rewards. After that, Group B began. As the level increased, the cultivation of the participating disciples also became stronger. The fights were more exciting and worth watching. "They are all high level." Jiang Ye's mouth twitched. Could it be that the disciples who represented Group B all had a high-level spirit root? In fact, they didn't. The reason why they had a high level was because they cultivated in the forging room and the training tower. This was just a normal operation. As the lower-level disciples continued to grow, their iron bone would definitely be high-level martial cultivators. However, the shock brought to Jiang Xia by the intersect grand competition was still ongoing, because after the Group A competition began, Long Xiang and Yang Yuhua went on stage one after another. The combat power they displayed made him unable to remain calm. "They are almost at the upper level." Dusk came. The 4 groups matches ended. In the end, the champion of Group A was Long Xiang. The second and third places were taken by Yang Yuhua and Song Xianzhou. Jiang Ye was so shocked that he couldn't regain his senses. This grand competition between the 2 sects has completely stupefied our elder Jiang. Chapter 317. Jiang Ye, who had been shocked by the healing pill and body-shaping pill, was once again shocked by the iron bone disciples. At that moment, he finally realized that it was not a coincidence that this sect could defeat the 5th-rate Holy Spring sect. They really had the strength. After the inter-sect tournament ended, the rewards began to be distributed. Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, Song Xianzhou, Ling Yuanxue and Zhang Wei, a total of 15 disciples, became the second batch of inner disciples as expected. In this way, the iron bone inner disciples increased from 7 to 22, which could be considered as strengthening. Although Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others did not advance, they still had the potential to become inner disciples. If not this year, they would definitely be able to enter the next year. Of course, this was just the beginning of the iron bone. With all kinds of resources, there would definitely be more outstanding disciples in the next year's intersect tournament. Long Xiang and the others were extremely proud of being promoted to Nye Sect's disciples. They had a group of monstrous senior brothers in the inner sect, and they followed closely behind. What an honor this was! What was even better was, becoming an inner disciple meant more resources, which was very helpful in improving their martial arts. After the sect leader announced the disbandment, Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, and the others eagerly went to the Elixir Pavilion to receive the martial arts resources that were only available to inner disciples. The intersect tournament ended. Jiangye gradually calmed down and said seriously, "Sect leader, if our sect can continue to develop, becoming a fourth-rate sect will not be a problem. With so many strong disciples, there was no reason not to be optimistic." Fourth rate. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "It's too low." Fourth rate was too low. Jiangye's mouth twitched. Although there were many sects of this level in the Falling Star continent, they did not appear casually. They needed enough time and resources to accumulate. Jun Changshao said seriously, "My goal is to make the Iron Bone sect the strongest sect in the continent." The strongest sect? Jiangye's mouth twitched even more violently. So the sect leader was an ambitious person, but wasn't this goal a little too big? Of course. Jun Changshao said, "The road ahead is long and arduous. I need a powerhouse like you to assist me." Jiangye said, "I am willing to serve the Iron Bonjing sect. I am willing to be at your beck and call." These words were due to the power of summoning. However, he was also looking forward to it. With such potential, to what extent could it grow to in the future? Sect leader. With a serious expression, Jiangye said, "Whether a sect is strong or not, the most important thing is that it must be able to withstand great storms." Throughout the long years, countless geniuses had emerged and outstanding sects had been born. How many of them had fallen in the long river of history? The experts in sects that stood towering on the Falling Star continent and were worshipped by all living beings had all gone through great storms. Therefore, potential only represented potential. Only by turning it into strength and establishing a foothold in the world could one be considered truly strong. Jun Changshao said, "Is challenging the vast Qi sect considered a great storm? Forget it. Is challenging the Sacred Spring sect considered a great storm? Forget it. It wasn't just a calculation, it was a perilous situation." So, Jun Changshao said proudly, "I have the confidence to make Iron Bone the strongest sect, and I also have the confidence to face the great storms in the future." Jiangye said, "Sect leader, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Jun Changshao said. Jiangye told him that the sect leader planned to go to the headquarters to invite Wu Huang. "It can't be." Jun Changshao's expression changed, and the corner of his mouth twitched. "Even an expert like Wu Huang is going to come. They are giving Iron Bone too much face." Jiangye was speechless. Why did the ambition he showed just now suddenly disappear? Jun Changshao was not afraid. After all, with the sect protecting formation, Wu Huang might not be able to do anything to his sect. However, if they were always targeted by a powerful third-rate sect, how could they develop in the future? Sigh. If he had known this, he would have lost to the patriarch of the Sacred Spring sect. However, Jiangye said, "The Supreme Kuan sect is going to rob the Demon Fiend sect's mine, so the sect leader won't be in the mood to target Iron Bone for the time being." Jun Changshao let out a long breath and said, "What mine?" Jiangye said, "Spirit Stone mine." Jun Changshao said in shock, "Spirit stones can be dug out?" Jiangye said, "Spirit stones are divided into two types. One is natural spirit stones, the other is artificial spirit stones. Natural spirit stones are dug out from mines. Artificial spirit stones are condensed by spirit masters. So that's how it is." Jun Changshao's knowledge increased. Jiangye said again, "In terms of levels, spirit stones nurtured by heaven and earth are stronger than artificial spirit stones. The spirit stones circulating on the market are artificial spirit stones?" Jun Changshao said. "That's right." Jiangye said, "The spirit stones sold on the market are all artificial spirit stones." Jun Changshao said, "Are there many mines on the continent?" "Many," Jiangye added, "but they are all in the hands of the large sections. The small sects can't even touch the edges." So that's why the Supreme Kuan sect went to rob the Demon Fiend sect? Jun Changshao said. Jiangya nodded. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "It seems that this spirit stone mine is quite important to a sect. They even dare to openly fight for it." Jiangya said seriously, "Whether a sect is strong or not depends on the spirit stone mine. A sect without a mine is at most a fourth-rate sect, so it is very important. Large sects often had tens of thousands of disciples, and this would definitely require a huge amount of resources. Relying on pills alone was definitely not enough. Having enough spirit stones was especially important." Jun Changshao said, "Are spirit stone mines easy to find?" Jiangya shook his head and said, "Although there are still many unknown mines on the continent that have not been mined, it is quite difficult to find them. Not to mention," he paused and said, "even if they are found, they will definitely be targeted by the large sections. At that time, it will be another bloody storm." Jun Changshao was not surprised. If they dared to openly rob a master mine, it would be strange if the various forces did not fight bloody faces for a newly discovered masterless mine. Because of the mine, there were many forces that eventually led to the destruction of their sections. Therefore, while the mine was a big deal for the large sects, it was a big disaster for the small sects. Jun Changshao did not dwell too much on the spirit stone mine and said, "You have already taken the body shaping pill. Starting tomorrow, you will start shaping your body in the shaping room. In terms of martial arts resources, I will provide them at any time." He appointed him as an elder not to manage internal affairs, but to continue to become stronger, so that he could assist him in building the strongest sect. Shaping room? Jiangya entered the training room a little puzzled, and followed the disciples into the shaping room. Ding! The machine started up and ran. Bang! 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 There was a wild explosion. Creak! The door opened, and Jiangya slid out like mud. Then he said helplessly, Too scary, too scary." His physical body was very strong, but the power of the shaping room was also very strong. Therefore, regardless of whether it was a martial disciple or a martial king, as long as they entered, they would be treated equally. They would still be tortured to their heart's content. Seeing Elder Jiang paralyzed on the stairs, the passing disciples immediately thought of themselves in the past. Thus, they all looked at him sympathetically. Even a martial king was tortured to such a state. What mental imbalance did he have? Chapter 318. Jun Changshao arranged an independent courtyard for Jiangya. After all, as an elder, he must have the treatment and status of an elder. The next day, Jiangya woke up and found that the pain had disappeared. His whole body was comfortable, and his strength was much stronger than yesterday. He was a little stunned. It must be because of the molding room. He hurried to the outer courtyard and prepared to sculpt again. Just as he walked out, he heard strange music in the martial arts practice field. "I want to cross this desert and find my true self. I only have a camel to accompany me." Jiangya opened his mouth and stared with his eyes wide open. He once again fell into a state of confusion. At this moment, on the martial arts practice field, the sect leader stood at the front. Hundreds of disciples lined up neatly behind him, dancing to the music. Clap, clap. Jiangya patted his face and said, "What's going on?" Jun Changshao, who was leading the dance, saw him walk out, snapped his fingers and said, "Elder Jiang, hurry up and come over for the morning exercise." Fuck. Leading the disciples to dance in the martial arts practice field early in the morning. Aren't you ashamed? Aren't you ashamed? Although Jiangya was on the verge of collapse, under the control of the power of summoning, he walked into the group with difficulty and followed the sect leader's example. Needless to say, as a martial king, he was quite accomplished in dancing. He learned it in a short while and fully integrated himself into it. After the morning exercise, Jiangya squatted in front of the stairs of the training room and said helplessly, What did I do just now?" "Nothing. It was just a dance. Moreover, this was just the beginning. In the future, there would be morning exercises every day, which would cultivate one's temperament." "Who?" Jiangya calmed down and entered the training room again. He directly sculpted for 8 hours. and only slid out like a puddle of mud when dusk came. The next day, his condition was restored, and his body and strength were stronger again. At this time, Jiangye finally understood the value of the molding room. He happily went to the outer courtyard and did morning exercises with the disciples, and then began to sculpt crazily. If not for the fact that he was worried about his missing sister, he would actually be very obsessed with martial arts. 3 days later, Jiangye had already gotten used to Iron Bone's shameful morning exercises, and his body and strength had obviously improved. Boom! His fist landed on the testing machine, and it showed that his strength was 1.96 million jin. He had only been in the forging room for 6 days, and his strength had increased from 1.9 million to this number. That was equivalent to an increase of 10,000 jin a day. Terrifying. It was too terrifying. Jiangye was enlightened. No wonder the Iron Bone disciples are so strong. They were molded in the molding room. Swish. As soon as he walked out of the training room, Happy Football galloped over. Pa! Jiangye caught it with one hand and thought. Iron Bone is really not simple. Becoming one of them might not be a bad thing. Even if he was under the control of the summoning power, he was reluctant to leave. Even Yi Xingchen could not resist the temptation, let alone a martial king. Jiangye completely approved of Iron Bone. However, little Long Long, who had beaten him up, was still listless in the past half a month. Little Long Long. Jun Changshao said worriedly. When will you recover? Goo goo. The fire dragon laid in its nest and let out a lazy cry, as if it was telling its master that it was fine and only needed to rest. As expected, a few days later, the little guy recovered and became lively again. Jun Changshao heaved a sigh of relief, but a new problem came, and that was that his contract beast could still eat after recovering. Moreover, his appetite was even bigger. No, Jun Changshao muttered. I have to provide it with enough food. Knowing that little Long Long could trample on the martial king in its battle form, he naturally had to feed it even better. But that guy ate too much. Just selling meat was a huge expense. Little guy. Jun Changshao brought it to the depths of Iron Bone Mountain and said, You have enough strength now. In the future, you can go find food for yourself. Little Long Long nodded, and turned into a red light that merged into the depths of the forest. With its arrival, wild beasts and vicious beasts would also bring about a huge disaster. After raising the contract beast, Jun Changshao returned to the sect, and began to think about how to make himself and his disciples stronger in the shortest amount of time possible. The Devil Fiend sect was a big threat after all. Although they had the battle exemption card, they could only live peacefully for 3 months, so they had to become stronger in order to contend against them. The system said, At this time, I recommend the host to buy goods for cultivation from the mid-level shopping mall, such as formations that can increase spirit energy. Is it easy to farm? It depends on the host's luck. If he had an endless supply of contribution points, Jun Changshao would definitely try his luck, but now that he only had 1,200 points, what could he use to try his luck? Right, he said. How many contribution points do you need to refresh the mid-level shopping mall? 100 points. The system said. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. If his luck was bad, even if he farmed 5 or 6 times in a row, he wouldn't have enough contribution points to buy it. Therefore, whether or not he and the sect could become stronger, they had to rely on more contribution points. Pa! Jun Changshao snapped his fingers and said, Open the mountain gate and recruit disciples. If he recruited all the disciples, he would be able to obtain nearly 1,000 contribution points. If he triggered the sect mission, he would be able to obtain a lot of contribution points. This was the safest way at the moment. Of course, whether or not he could obtain more resources, he still had to rely on Elder Wei. Jun Changshao came to the medicine garden to check, and found that the spirit energy gathering in the sky was even denser. Not only here, with several harvesting and planting outside the mountain where the iron bone was located, the concentration of spirit energy was very good, and it could be considered to have begun to take shape. The spirit energy of the sect was strong, And the advantage was that the disciples could absorb the heaven and earth attributes better and faster, and the maturity period of the medicinal herbs would be greatly shortened. Sect Master. Elder Wei sat in the small pavilion and smiled. According to the current level of spirit energy, the medicinal herbs can mature in half a month. In the past 2 months, now half a month, the improvement was obvious. Jun Changxiao was not satisfied but asked, "Can the medicinal herbs mature faster?" The faster the medicinal herbs matured, the more pills they could refine. In this way, the disciples would have enough resources and could achieve comprehensive improvement. Elder Wei shook his head. "If you want to mature in 6 or 7 days, I can do it, but the level of spirit energy of the medicinal herbs will be greatly reduced." For the medicinal herbs he mastered, half a month was the best time to mature. If it was faster, he could only use spirit energy to exchange for it. Then forget it. Jun Changxiao needed high multiplier qi gathering pills, and only high spirit energy medicinal herbs could refine them. It was definitely not worthwhile to pursue speed and give up quality. "Elder Wei," he said, "if the medicinal herbs mature, you and the members of the medicine hall can collect them and put them in the medicine hall. I will take them away and refine them when I have time." "Yes," Elder Wei said. Jun Changxiao got up and was about to return to the main hall when he suddenly stopped and pointed into the distance, saying in surprise, "Elder Wei, what is that?" Elder Wei looked in the direction he was pointing. Between the mountains in the distance, colorful clouds rose slowly, gradually forming a circle and spreading outwards. At first glance, it looked like a rainbow after the rain. "This is..." Elder Wei was stunned and exclaimed, "the sign of the recovery of spirit energy." Chapter 319. From the position of the herb garden, the overlapping mountains in front of them were quite magnificent. Unfortunately, the heaven and earth attributes were not strong, so in the eyes of martial artists, there was no value in establishing a sect. However, sect leader Wang established the Iron Bone Mountain here, which could be considered as regaining some dignity for the barren mountain that no one cared about. At this moment, between the overlapping mountains, a colorful aura appeared, which added a bit of spiritual energy to the Iron Bone Mountain. "This is..." Elder Wei's expression changed greatly, and he said in surprise, "the sign of spiritual energy recovery." As he spoke, his hands trembled slightly, and he looked very excited. "The sign of spiritual energy recovery?" Jun Changxiao was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Elder Wei suppressed the waves in his heart and explained, "Sect leader, do you know the past of the falling star continent?" "No," Jun Changxiao said. After transmigrating to this world, he knew very little about the falling star continent because the original owner had never left home. Elder Wei said, "According to historical records, the falling star continent was a complete world in ancient times. The heaven and earth spiritual energy was so rich that it was easy for martial artists to break through to Martial King and Wu Huang." "So powerful?" Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. Now that he had broken through to Wuzong, even with the help of high multiplier energy gathering pills, the speed of his improvement was very slow. In ancient times, it was easy to break through to Martial King and Wu Huang. This was a bit scary. "Sigh." Elder Wei shook his head and said, "Unfortunately, the emperors fought for hundreds of years and broke the falling star continent into 13 provinces. The heaven and earth attribute balance was destroyed, and the spiritual energy rapidly weakened, and finally it became what it is now." "Shatter the entire continent?" Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched violently. From what he knew now, the falling star continent was much bigger than the earth he used to live on. How terrifying was the power needed to break it? "What does this have to do with spiritual energy recovery?" "It has to do with it," Elder Wei said. "Although the heaven and earth attribute balance was destroyed, the seed of spiritual energy still exists. It is stored in the earth and will gradually recover over time. Since ancient times, there have been many places where spiritual energy has recovered. How many experts have taken it for themselves and established their own sects? In the end, all of them became the most powerful sects in the continent." Jun Changxiao suddenly understood. Elder Way means that the reason why the mountains of those large sects are full of spiritual energy is because of the recovery of spiritual energy? That's right, Elder Way said. He added, for example, after the founder of Taishan Shengzong obtained the Taishan Ice Heart technique, he occupied a place where the spiritual aura had recovered. That's why he became one of the strongest sects in the continent today. Looking at the colorful area, Jun Changshao said with a burning gaze, could it be that the Iron Bone Mountain also has a seed of spiritual energy and is recovering its spiritual energy? It is recorded in the ancient books that when the five-colored light appears, it is a sign of spirit chi recovery, Elder Wei said. Let's go, Jun Changshao said. Let's go take a look. Sect leader. Suddenly, Jiangye hurried over and pointed to the front. There is a five-colored light there. There must be a spirit stone vein. In the past few days, he had found that many inner disciples had run to the back of the mountain, so he followed them out of curiosity. In the end, he did not see the training tower, but he unexpectedly saw the colorful clouds and mist between the mountains in the distance. He was instantly dumbfounded. Yes, ever since our elder Jiang joined the Iron Bone Mountain, he had spent every day in a daze. It could be said that he was mentally exhausted. However, he had a different understanding from Elder Wei. Wherever the five-colored light appeared in the world, there must be a spirit stone vein. This was an unchanging rule. What? Jun Changshao was stunned and said, Spirit stone vein. That's right, Elder Wei said. Where there is a seed of spiritual energy, there will be a spirit stone vein. Holy shit! Jun Changshao almost jumped up and said, this is a windfall. A few days ago, he and Jiangye had talked about the spirit stone vein. At that time, it was just a story. He did not expect that the Iron Bone Mountain would break through and appear a spirit stone vein. Go. Hurry up and take a look. Jun Changshao was very excited now. There was suddenly a spirit stone vein on his mountain. Once it was mined, would there be a shortage of resources in the future? Sect leader, Jiangye said solemnly. For my Iron Bone Mountain, this is not a windfall but a disaster. Jun Changshao immediately calmed down. That was right. Third-rate sects were fighting to the death for the spirit stone vein. If outsiders knew that the Iron Bone Mountain had a spirit stone vein, it would definitely attract countless experts. Then could they hide the five-colored light? While thinking, Elder Wei interrupted. The five-colored light has just appeared. In time, it will illuminate the entire mountain. Many people will also realize that there is a seed of spiritual energy here. Jun Changshao suddenly felt a little dizzy. Looking at the situation, it was impossible to hide it. If it illuminated the entire mountain, the news would definitely spread throughout the Falling Star continent in a short time. At this moment, Elder Wei was stunned and said in surprise, the five-colored light is dissipating. Jun Changshao and Jiangye hurriedly looked over. Between the mountains, the colorful aura that was originally spreading was slowly converging and soon disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Jiangye was stunned again. Let's go, Jun Changshao said. Let's go and take a look. Iron Bone Mountain only occupied a small part of the Iron Bone Mountain. The rest was the rolling mountain range, or the primitive forest that was dark all year round. Jun Changshao usually developed the sect and cultivated, so he rarely came to the wild. At this moment, he, Jiangye, and Elder Wei stood in the area where the five-colored light disappeared. They looked at each other and stared at each other. This was a slightly open grassland. Except for the scattered stones, there was nothing special about it. Jun Changshao said, What's going on? Elder Wei was silent for a moment and said, Sect leader, in my opinion, there should be a seed of spiritual energy here. Just now it showed signs of being stimulated and awakened. Then why did it disappear? Jun Changshao asked. Elder Wei said, It's very likely that it hasn't reached the conditions for awakening, so it was taken back. Jun Changshao said, What conditions? Elder Wei said, Sect leader ordered me to plant medicinal herbs around the Iron Bone and gradually gather spiritual energy. Perhaps this is the condition for awakening the seed of spiritual energy. It's possible, Jiangye agreed. Although there were many conditions for the seed of spiritual energy to awaken, The biggest reason was that there was external spiritual energy diffusing, and thus leading it. Jun Changshao said. In other words, as long as we continue to improve the ecological environment of Ironbone Mountain, the seed of spiritual energy will be completely awakened. It should be. Elder Wei didn't dare to be sure, and could only guess. Jun Changshao said. Since we can confirm that there is a spirit stone vein below, why wait for it to awaken? Why don't we just dig out the vein before the five-colored light appears? No, Elder Wei said. When the five-colored light fully blooms, it represents the awakening of spiritual energy. The spirit stone vein has also been announced. If we dig it out in advance, it will only destroy the seed of spiritual energy and the vein. At that time, it will be like drawing water with a bamboo basket. Jun Changshao was speechless. Jiang Ye said, Sect leader, since it takes some time for the spirit stone vein to form, we can make preparations in advance to cover up the appearance of the five-colored light. How do we cover it up? Jun Changshao asked. Jiang Ye said, since Sect leader can set up a powerful defensive formation, I'm sure you can also set up an isolation formation, right? The so-called isolation formation was to seal off an area. Nothing could happen inside, and no one outside could see it. Many large sects found a place with spiritual energy awakening, and most of them used this method to shield it. The effect was very good, and it was rarely discovered. Good idea, Elder Wei said. This? Jun Changshao wanted to tell them loudly, I don't understand formations at all. Chapter 320. Elder Wei judged that Ironbone Mountain had spirit energy seeds and spirit stone veins. If they continued to improve the ecological environment, they could promote the recovery. That was more comfortable, at least for the time being. They didn't have to worry about the recovery of spirit energy causing a phenomenon and being exposed. Jiang Ye's suggestion was to set up an isolation array in this area to isolate the five-colored light produced by the recovery of spirit energy. Although Jun Changshao didn't understand array formations, he had the system. Therefore, he said, can an isolation array be refreshed in the shop? The system said, as long as the host has enough contribution points, any type of array can be refreshed. Can it be refreshed in the beginner's shop? Jun Changshao said. The system said, it is possible, but the probability is very low. The host is recommended to refresh from the mid-level shop. If Jun Changshao had more than 10,000 contribution points, he definitely wouldn't consider refreshing from the mid-level shop. But now he couldn't afford to play at all. Recruit disciples, recruit disciples. After returning to the sect, he began to plan. In the end, Jun Changshao decided to recruit disciples in the 8 cities of Qingyang County. Moreover, he firmly believed that his sect had defeated the Sacred Spring sect. This time, the recruitment would definitely attract many talented youths. The next day, Jun Changshao prepared to set off for Qingyang City. Sect Master, Li Qingyang said, Song Mountain Sect's Elder Ma has come to visit. Oh, Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, he should be here for the alliance. After offending the Demon Fiend sect, Song Mountain Sect dared to form an alliance with him. This was an iron relationship, so in order to express his respect, he personally went out to welcome him. It was Ma Yunting's first time at Ironbone. When he saw the magnificent hall and the disciples with imposing auras, his heart stirred. Sect Master Jun Elder Ma said, your sect has great potential. If it is certified by the certification center, it will definitely reach the first rank. If he knew that the elder of the Southwest Yangzhou Certification Department gave it the 3rd rank, he would realize that he had still underestimated the potential of Ironbone. Jun Changshao said humbly, Elder Ma is too kind. Right at this moment, Ma Yunting saw Jiang Ye walking out from the inner courtyard. He felt that the other party's aura was very strong. He asked in surprise, Sect Master Jun, this is? I am Elder Ironbone, Jun Changshao said. Ma Yunting's gaze was solemn as he said, this elder's cultivation, could it be? Not bad. Jun Changshao said, it's the martial king. When Ma Yunting heard this, his heart was in turmoil. He was not looking down on the Ironbone clan, But it was unimaginable for a seventh-rate sect to have a martial king realm elder. The two of them entered the main hall. Ma Yunting had just sat down when he bluntly said, "Sect head Jun, I came here on behalf of Blue Mountain Sect to discuss an alliance with your sect." After returning to the sect, he and Wang Donglin hurriedly went to the sect leader and told him everything that had happened in the Sacred Spring sect. They also suggested that they should immediately form an alliance with Iron Bone. The sect leader of Blue Mountain Sect was also shocked that Iron Bone could beat the Sacred Spring sect so badly. After careful consideration, he accepted the two elders' suggestion. "Jun is indebted to Blue Mountain Sect for thinking so highly of you." Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, Iron Bone was still in the initial stage of development. With a fifth-rate sect as an ally, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. Ma Yunting waved his hand and took out an alliance agreement from his spatial ring. The alliance language was written on it, and the sect leader's seal was stamped on it. "Sect head Jun," he said, "please stamp it." Jun Changshao took out the sect leader's seal and pressed it on the words of his sect. At this point, Iron Bone and Blue Mountain Sect had become allies. As for how long it would last, it depended on how long the friendly relationship between the two sides could last. After finishing his business, Ma Yunting did not stay any longer and returned to the sect. Jun Changshao temporarily dismissed the idea of going to Qingyang City and waited for a better opportunity to come. 3 days later, Blue Mountain Sect announced to the public that they had formed an alliance with Iron Bone. When the news spread throughout Qingyang County, it caused a huge commotion. The Blue Mountain Sect, which had always been aloof, actually formed an alliance with Iron Bone. This was definitely a big event. After the various forces received the news, they realized that if Iron Bone could form an alliance with the Five Streams Blue Mountain Sect, it meant that they were truly powerful. Last year, they were still a mediocre sect. In such a short period of time, they had achieved so much. After Jun Changshao, who was in charge of Iron Bone, received the news, he smiled and said, "The opportunity has come." Then, he left for Qingyang City. The opportunity he was waiting for was Blue Mountain Sect's announcement of their alliance. This way, Iron Bone's reputation would be higher, and it would be easier for them to recruit disciples. Jun Changshao first went to find Mayor Xie, then went to Huyang City. Finally, he visited all 6 cities before returning to the sect. What was he going to do? Advertise and promote the recruitment of disciples. Because of his reputation, he only needed to inform the mayor of each city about his intentions. Not only did they enthusiastically agree, they also actively assisted him. 100 Sect Alliance? Sorry, who is that? We don't know them at all. With Iron Bone's current reputation, the mayor of the 8 cities completely ignored Qin Haoren and his 100 Sect Alliance. Of course, Alliance leader Qin and the elders of the alliance did not dare to jump in front of Iron Bone. They could only force themselves to become invisible. They could pretend to disappear. But Jun Changshao would never forget about them. After all, when he was weak, they did not treat him lightly. They even challenged the Sacred Spring Sect and laughed at him. Actually, Jun Changshao had already started to take revenge. For example, Iron Bone had secretly instructed Zhao Xingming to receive special treatment from the 100 Sect Alliance. Special treatment meant making things difficult for Zhao Xingming. However, the 100 Sect Alliance had not received the approval yet. Therefore, it was hard for this revenge to be shown. After settling the matter, Jun Changshao continued to cultivate as usual. He also entered the first and second levels of the training pagoda to increase the upper limit of his physical body and movement techniques. The next day, just as he finished washing up, Li Qingyang hurried over and said, "Sect leader, someone is here to sign up." So fast, Jun Changshao said in surprise. Not only was it fast, there were many of them. When he walked out of the sect and opened the red door, he saw thousands of young men and women gathered at the entrance. Their eyes were filled with excitement and nervousness. These young men had already planned to sign up. Especially after seeing the recruitment advertisement yesterday, they could not stop themselves. Some even rushed over overnight. If not for Iron Bone defeating the Sacred Spring Sect, and forming an alliance with the Tsang Mountain Sect. This recruitment would not have attracted so many people. Qingyang, Jun Changxiao said, set the table and recruit. Yes. Li Qingyang placed a table and chairs in front of the door. He also placed a thick registration form and the 4 treasures of the study. Seeing this, the young men all gathered around. Because the Demon Fiend Sect was fighting with the Supreme Kuan Sect, they did not have time to deal with Iron Bone. Therefore, Sect leader Jun had already closed the Sect protection formation. Line up, Li Qingyang ordered. One by one. Name, Wei Zhangqi. Aptitude, Mortal Grade Spirit Root. Jun Changxiao was quite satisfied and directly stamped the entry form with his seal. Chapter 321. In the past, because there were few people who signed up, there was no choice in terms of spirit root aptitude. Jun Changxiao could only recruit by confirming with his eyes. Now it was different. There were more than 4,000 or 5,000 teenagers who signed up, and they could not all be accepted into the sect, so they had to choose good aptitude to cultivate. The system said, "Didn't you say that it was very satisfying to cultivate low-grade disciples? Why are you being picky now?" Jun Changxiao knew that he was deliberately mocking himself, so he said lightly, "I'm happy." The system was silent. Name, Zheng Yan. Aptitude, middle grade spirit root. Jun Changxiao did not consider and directly stamped the sect seal. At the same time, the sound of members increasing and contribution points increasing rang in his ears. Of course, there was a type of person who did not consider spirit root aptitude. As long as they signed up, they would definitely be accepted into the sect. That's right. This type of person was women. Iron Bone had always been more men than women. Considering the balance of men and women, as long as a girl came to sign up, he would not hesitate to accept her. 2 hours later, after Jun Changxiao asked one by one, he selected 999 from thousands of applicants, including 750 male disciples and 249 female disciples. In terms of aptitude, there were more than 20 mid-grade spirit roots, and the rest were mostly mortal grade, and a small number of low-grade spirit roots. There was no need to hold the next 100 sects recruitment, because sect leader Jun was one step ahead and took in the outstanding young men and women who had just reached adulthood. The sects could only choose generals from the short. After recruiting 999 disciples, the number of sect members reached 2,000, and the contribution points were also 999, with an overflow of 254 points. The most satisfying thing was, after the sect was full, the sect mission was activated again. On the mission list in the mission pavilion, a dense number of missions once again appeared. According to Jun Changxiao's estimation, if the disciples completed all the missions, the contribution points and achievement points could each be obtained by 2,000 points. How wonderful! How wonderful! After the recruitment, Li Qingyang distributed school uniforms, sect rules and arranged accommodation for the new disciples. At this time, the role of our internal affairs chief was reflected. Because the number of disciples increased by nearly 1,000, the inner courtyard wing could still easily accept. However, it was also saturated. After Li Qingyang made proper arrangements for the new junior brothers, he proposed to the sect leader to expand the inner courtyard. Jun Changxiao gave him 100,000 taels and said, "I'll leave it to you." Yes. Therefore, Li Qingyang once again became a civil engineer and began to draw the draft of the expansion of the wing rooms in the inner courtyard, trying his best to arrange and use them reasonably. After Jun Changxiao took a mystical bath with incense, he sat in the study room and opened the shop again. At this time, he only had one thought, and that was to hope that an isolation array would be refreshed from the beginner's shop. The system poured cold water on him. It's very difficult. Jun Changxiao ignored it and scanned the store. After confirming that there was nothing good, he scrolled down. Most of the new products were daily necessities. However, there was also a formula called soft silk armor. Based on the description, this item was similar to an iron shield. It was a type of defensive equipment that could be worn on the body. I'll buy it. Ding! The host has spent 100 contribution points and received the Soft Silk Armor Formula X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 21402000. The formula appeared in the space ring and was automatically matched to the forging pavilion. After Jun Changxiao opened it, he found that the main material of this defensive equipment was spider silk. It just so happened that when he was doing a mission in Death Valley, he got a lot of spider silk and could use it to refine it. The forging pavilion began to operate. Taking advantage of this time, Jun Changxiao continued to look at the shop. After scrolling to the end, there was nothing good, so he continued to refresh. In the end, he refreshed 5 times and spent 100 contribution points, but nothing good came out. Just as Sect Leader Jun was about to give up, a formation aptitude liquid appeared on the 6th refresh. The system said, "This is good stuff." Jun Changxiao opened the introduction. Item, Formation Aptitude Liquid. Effect. After consumption, the user will instantly gain the aptitude for formations and become a beginner formation master. Price, 200 contribution points. Jun Changxiao said, "I can become a formation master? It seems not bad." It's not just not bad. The system said seriously. In the Falling Star continent, formation masters have a high status. I recommend the host to buy 10 stars. In the past, it was 5 stars, but now it was 10 stars. It could be seen that the formation aptitude modification liquid was really not bad. Even if I can't get an isolation formation, I can try to set it up myself. Jun Changxiao muttered, and had already clicked on the purchase. Ding! Host has spent 200 contribution points and obtained Formation Aptitude Liquid X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1830200. After buying it, Jun Changxiao took out a small bottle similar to the aptitude modification liquid from the space ring and drank it without hesitation. The taste was sweet and refreshing, leaving a rich aftertaste. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a special message filled Jun Changxiao's sea of consciousness, causing him to have a splitting headache. The pain was fleeting. Everything returned to normal. Jun Changxiao felt that he had grasped the knowledge of formations. This kind of knowledge required time to slowly accumulate. Relying on the formation aptitude liquid to instantly obtain it, the system's products were truly heaven-defying. The current sect leader Jun was not only a martial cultivator, but also a beginner array master. However, with the knowledge of formations, without the formation patterns, it was impossible to cook without rice. The system said, if the host can refresh the array blueprints in the shop, that would be even more perfect. Is it easy to refresh? Jun Changxiao said. The system said, it's easy to refresh, but the premise is that it's in the middle-level store. Jun Changxiao was speechless. There was still a mid-grade cold light swords weapon formula in the middle-level store, but he couldn't bear to buy it. If it was refreshed, it would definitely be refreshed. The initial grade cold light sword was already very valiant. The middle grade cold light sword would definitely be even more powerful. The system said, host can buy it first, and then refresh the shop. If you're lucky, you can get an isolation formation or an array blueprint. You can wait until you have enough contribution points to buy it. Jun Changxiao was silent for a moment, then said, that makes sense. Thus, he spent 1,000 contribution points to buy the formula, and it was automatically matched to the smithing pavilion. The main material used for the middle-grade cold light sword was also cold iron, but it weighed 100 kilograms. The materials are a bit hard to find. Jun Changxiao kept the panel and continued to browse through the middle-level store. After confirming that there was nothing good, he clenched his teeth and refreshed. After spending 100 contribution points, the old goods were replaced by new goods. As expected, there were many good things in the middle-level store. Even if some of them could be classified as daily necessities, they were still more useful than the beginner-level store. After browsing through them one by one, Jun Changxiao's gaze locked onto the second item in the second row. It was a thick book with a picture of a book, called Strange Gate 32 Formations Improved Version. Improved version? He curiously clicked on the details. Item: Strange Gate 32 Formations Improved Version Description. This item was created by a formation grandmaster of the Myriad Ages continent. He spent his entire life creating 32 types of high-grade formation arrays. After being modified by a mighty figure, it was divided into elementary, intermediate, high, extreme, and superior formations. Advantage: after the improvement, the Strange Gate 32 formations is easier to arrange and suitable for beginners. Price: 1,000 contribution points. Seeing the word suitable for beginners, Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. Although he relied on the formation aptitude liquid to become a beginner array master, he didn't have any experience in setting up arrays, so he was equivalent to a beginner. The system side: I came here to refresh the array blueprint, but I didn't expect the host to directly refresh an array blueprint. This luck is really good. Chapter 322. Jun Changxiao, who had just become an array master, found an array atlas in the mid-level store. His luck could be said to be extremely good. However, after buying the mid-level cold ray sword formula, he only had 830 contribution points left, so he could only look at it and not buy it. It doesn't matter. Jun Changxiao comforted himself. The disciples have already accepted the Sect's missions. It should only take a few days to gather 1,000 points. Keeping the store panel, he swallowed a 15x qi gathering pill, activated Yi Jin Jing, and continued to cultivate. It was a pity that Jiang Ye couldn't cultivate this kind of inner force mental cultivation method, because he was a martial king. Otherwise, the strength of his body would have increased by a lot. In fact, with the molding room, his strength steadily increased every day, advancing towards the extreme level, which already made him very satisfied. This was just the beginning. When Jiang Ye began to come into contact with Iron Bone's cultivation method, he was immediately deeply shocked and secretly said, "This rupturing fist and mountain-splitting palm, although their levels are not high, they are comparable to high-grade martial arts." Especially after cultivating self-slash, that kind of shock was even stronger. He had never heard of this kind of spiritual force-type martial arts that increased in power with the increase in level and didn't consume too much psionic energy. Of course, there was also seal cover, cloud steps, and sound transmission technique. As Jiang Ye cultivated one by one, he couldn't help but secretly think, where did the sect leader find so many profound martial arts? And this was only the martial arts part. When he entered the elixir pavilion and received the elder's monthly fixed elixir, he felt the high multiplier qi gathering pill and said sincerely, "It's normal that the Holy Spring sect didn't win a single match." Don't worry, Elder Zhang's shock was still to come, because there was still the even more awesome experience tower that he had not experienced. Next, Iron Bone had a rare calm. The new disciples also began their painful but happy life in the sect. When they cultivated the cultivation method, obtained the elixir, and experienced the molding room, they were immediately filled with hope for the future. Other sects had to rely on themselves to fight for everything. In Iron Bone, there was not much to worry about. There was only one main mission, and that was to become stronger. Open your hands for clothes and open your mouth for food. Wouldn't that make your disciple feel negligent? No, because of the monthly strength test, disciples who did not meet the requirements would be punished. In the second test, if his strength did not increase much, he would be expelled from the sect. Remember all of this. In front of the main hall, Jun Changxiao said, "Joining Iron Bone is not for you to be arrogant. If you can't repay us with your strength, you'll definitely be kicked out." Yes, the 1,000 new disciples shouted in unison. The sect provided him with resources for free. If he didn't make himself stronger and slacked off instead, he must be sick in the head. After everything was arranged, Jun Changxiao focused his mind on cultivation. However, even with the supply of high multiplier qi gathering pills, it would still take a lot of time to break through to level 3 Wuzong. The mission pavilion issued missions, and disciples went in and out every day to receive missions suitable for themselves. Every day, Jun Changshao would receive notifications of the completion of his missions. Of course, as the level of the sect's construction increased, many high-star missions appeared one after another. Most of these missions were done by the inner sect disciples, and normal missions were given to the outer sect and new disciples. After completing the missions, the disciples would also buy chi-gathering elixirs on their own to improve faster. All in all, with the sect's mission board and vending machine, Jun Changshao did not have to ask, and the disciples would not randomly accept missions or exchange for things. Unfortunately, the sect missions would only appear after the recruitment was full, and there could not be missions issued every day, so they were often interrupted. If the mission board had missions issued every day, even if there were no rewards for myself, it would be better to let them do it instead of just cultivating, Jun Changshao murmured. The system said, "That's why the host lacks a sect mission issuer. Missions will be issued every day, and after completion, the disciples will also receive the corresponding contribution points." It sounds very advanced. Should I buy it in the mid-level store? Jun Changshao said. The system said, yes. Jun Changshao was speechless. With his current contribution points, it was easy to refresh the beginner's store and buy the things inside. But after opening the mid-level store, he obviously felt that his contribution points were not enough. A few days later, the disciples had completed many missions, and their contribution points had increased from 830 to 1200, and their achievement points had increased to 870. Jun Changshao bought the Mystic 32 Formations without hesitation. It was a thick ancient book with a yellowed cover, and when he took it out from the space ring, it immediately gave off a desolate aura. This formation atlas is a little old. Jun Changshao sat in the study and flipped to the first page, which recorded that the creator of the formation was Emperor Xiao Yao, and the modifier was Holy Emperor Fei Yang. Holy Emperor? Jun Changshao murmured. Is it a martial emperor? The system said, there are many planes of martial arts in the vast universe, and each plane has its own independent system of martial arts. This Holy Emperor may be a realm, or it may be a title. Oh, Jun Changshao replied, flipping to the second page, and wrote Beginner's section, a total of 10 types of beginner's formation. He continued to flip to the next page, and a formation blueprint appeared. Various red hearts that represented the formation were scattered all over, and it looked very complicated. If it was in the past, Jun Changshao would definitely not be able to understand it, but after becoming a beginner's formation master, he could see it clearly. The first formation was called Beginner's Spirit Gathering Formation. The introduction said that no matter what plane it was, as long as there was heaven and earth spirit energy, it could be quickly gathered, and the intensity was 10 times that of the outside world. 10 times? Jun Changshao was shocked. So awesome. The spirit gathering formation that he bought in the store was only twice that of the outside world. Learn. He had to learn. Jun Changshao hurriedly started to study it. The formation looked complicated, but in reality, it was only made up of 2 parts, the formation array and the formation array. First the formation array, then the formation array, and then the formation array would be formed. Of course, there were strict requirements when setting up the formation array. The positioning of the formation array and the outline of the formation array were extremely testing for the formation master, and the slightest deviation would result in failure, and in serious cases, an explosion. Many half-baked formation masters were careless when setting up the formation array, and forcibly set up a non-dangerous formation array into an explosion array, and then gloriously reported to King Yama's palace. Therefore, to become a qualified formation master, not only did one have to have a strong memory and brain capacity, but one also had to be careful, and ordinary people could not play with it at all. An hour later, Jun Changshao memorized all the formation arrays and formation arrays of the beginner's spirit gathering formation. Was it because he became a formation master? No. It was because after the improvement of the Mystic 32 formations, there were not many formations and formation arrays, and it was too easy to memorize. Let's give it a try. Jun Changxiao rubbed his hands, and then walked out of the courtyard. He came to an open area at the back of the mountain, found a pile of small stones, and began to place them in an orderly manner. Soon, the stones that represented the formation array were in place. Jun Changxiao took a small branch and began to outline the formation array from each formation array position. His drawing technique was very stable, and one could tell at a glance that he was a professional formation master. After connecting the final formation array with the formation array, the beginner's spirit gathering formation was formed. The formation array shone, and the intricate formation array shone with flowing light. Whoosh! Suddenly, the formation array shot up into the sky. It's done. Jun Changxiao smiled brightly. He had set up the disciples' spirit formation and the sect protection formation before, but they were all foolishly operated. This time, the formation array was formed by himself stroke by stroke, so after it was formed, he was immediately filled with a sense of accomplishment. See, this is the first formation array that I have created in the other world. Whoosh whoosh. Just at this moment, the formation array began to distort, and it shone with a dazzling light, as if it was going to, not good. Jun Changxiao's smile froze, and he hurriedly turned and fled. Boom! A loud sound came from the back of the mountain. Not good. The sect master has fainted from the explosion. Quickly bring him to the medicine hall for treatment. Chapter 323. Sect leader Jun smoothly set up the elementary spirit gathering array. However, there was a slight deviation in the outline, and the array exploded the moment it was activated. The explosion was very powerful. It created a crater that was dozens of meters wide. Even though Jun Changxiao realized it, he didn't have time to escape. In the end, his entire body was charred black, and he had to be carried by a disciple to the medicine hall for emergency treatment. As a beginner, it was normal for the array to explode because of a mistake. Therefore, to survive and become a qualified array master was undoubtedly equivalent to breaking through a mountain of blades and a sea of flames. The next day, sect leader Jun's entire body was wrapped in bandages. He sat in a small pavilion in the courtyard with a walking stick beside him. He had a look of hopelessness as he thought, "Where did I go wrong?" The system said, "Hosts should study the array more. Once you're completely familiar with it, you can try to set it up again." Alright. Jun Changxiao took out the Mystic 32 arrays with difficulty and carefully looked at the spirit gathering array. After looking at it for half a day, he finally realized that he had set it up too hastily. There were many small mistakes. Although they weren't obvious, they were fatal. After this failure, Jun Changxiao became extremely cautious when setting up the array next time. Buzz! 3 days later, the area behind the mountain that had been bombed appeared again. A spirit gathering array about 100 square meters in size was activated. Jun Changxiao hid in the distance and waited for a while. After confirming that it wouldn't explode, he smiled and said, "It's done." It was really done this time. When he carefully entered the array and felt the spiritual energy 10 times stronger than outside, the smile on his face became even wider. With the spirit gathering array, it was equivalent to having 10 times the spiritual energy supply. If he took a high multiplier spirit gathering pill, the speed would only be faster. The disadvantage was that it was too small and couldn't hold too many people. Jun Changxiao held his chin and said, "I can set up a few more." He did as he thought. After 2 days of hard work, another 4 spirit gathering arrays were set up. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others entered. When they felt the spiritual energy that was far stronger than the array, their faces were filled with excitement. Yi Xingchen thought to himself, "Only the array faction can set up this kind of array. Sect leader is indeed not simple." Formation masters on the Starfall continent were also divided into different levels. Similar to martial arts, they were divided into array apprentice, array master, array king, array emperor, array saint, and even array emperor. According to Yi Xingchen's understanding, only an array grandmaster would be able to set up an array formation that could increase one's spiritual energy by 10 times. Of course, The formation school was already very powerful on the Starfall continent. Because array masters were extremely rare and cultivation was extremely difficult. From ancient times until now, there were very few who had reached the level of array emperor or array saint. As for array emperors, they only existed in ancient times. In the present world, no one had reached the level of array Dao. Formations were also divided into different levels. It was still disciple master, master, king, emperor, saint and emperor. Array disciples set up apprentice arrays. Array masters set up sect arrays. And array thearchs set up emperor arrays. The Tao of formations was indispensable in the falling star continent because it played a vital role in many places and many things. Therefore, array masters, alchemists, and spirit masters all enjoyed extremely high statuses. Moreover, in terms of battle prowess, if the array faction could set up a killing array, they might not necessarily be afraid of martial kings. It was better to provoke a martial cultivator than a formation cultivator. This was a very popular saying on the Starfall continent. Why? Because no one knew if he would set up a killing array in front of your door. Martial kings had spiritual senses and couldn't pry into formations. Concealment formation plus isolation formation plus various killing arrays. After combining them, one would understand. Of course, a formation master with battle prowess depended on whether he could set up the array in time. If he couldn't, he could only be tortured by martial cultivators until he couldn't take care of himself. From today onwards, Jun Changxiao announced in front of the main hall. The Spirit Gathering Array is open 24/7. You can enter anytime and anywhere. When the thousands of disciples heard this, their eyes suddenly burned with passion. With such a powerful spiritual power, if they went in to cultivate, their martial arts would definitely improve very quickly. Therefore, the Ironbone disciples ignored the Spirit Gathering Array. As long as they absorbed spiritual power for cultivation, they would go to the Spirit Gathering Array at the back of the mountain. Jun Changxiao, on the other hand, removed the Spiritual Energy Array. This array that costs 1 contribution point per day could be gloriously retired. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji and the others felt that their bodies had been tempered to the extreme and began to focus on cultivation. Therefore, they spent more time in the Spirit Gathering Array. Sect Master Jiangye was in the array and said, "You can set up such a powerful Spirit Gathering Array. It shouldn't be a problem for you to set up an isolation formation. Please quickly seal off that area to prevent the 5-colored light from appearing again." Don't worry. Jun Changxiao said calmly. He was actually very anxious. After returning to the study, he began to flip through the Chiman 32 formations. Sure enough, he found an isolation formation in the beginner section of formations. The introduction said that this isolation formation was also integrated with a concealment formation. Not only could it isolate everything, but it would also change according to the environment. Unless one touched it personally, it would be very difficult to detect. Not bad. Jun Changxiao rubbed his hands and began to comprehend. A few days later, he memorized the formation and lines in his heart. Jun Changxiao didn't set it up immediately. Instead, he carefully studied the points of the formation and the outline of the lines until he reached the limit. Only then did he come to the open area where the 5-colored light rose. After finding a lot of small stones, he let out a long sigh of relief and began to set it up seriously. Every point of the formation was done perfectly. This was a delicate job and couldn't be rushed. It wasn't until half a day later that Jun Changxiao scattered the small stones around the open grassland. After the formation was done, he began to outline the lines. When dusk came, Jun Changxiao connected the last line to the beginning and end of the formation. Buzz! In an instant, a stream of light rose into the sky. Sect Master Jun had long left with the cloud treading steps. This was a psychological shadow from the explosion. Even though he knew that the formation was impeccable, he was still worried that an accident would happen. After the isolation formation was formed, it was blurry at first, then gradually solidified. In the end, it looked like a smooth mirror. A moment later, the concealment effect was triggered. The scene that the barrier evolved was perfectly compatible with the surrounding environment. It felt like wearing a large ghillie suit. Jun Changshao walked over carefully and stopped at the edge of the formation. He gently raised his hand, and ripples appeared in midair. Then his body merged into it. Sect Master Jun entered the formation, but from the outside, it was still an open grassland. There was no change at all. This was the isolation formation of the 32 formations of wonders. Because of the shielding formation, it could merge with the environment very well. How is it? Jun Changshao said. Can you see anything? Jiangya, who was called over, stood in front of the formation. He released his spiritual senses, but it was difficult for him to capture the aura of the formation. Hence, he asked in confusion, "There's a formation here?" "Try taking 2 steps, Jun Changshao said. Jiangya did as he was told. However, as soon as he took the 2nd step, his head bumped into the formation. "This!" He covered his head and exclaimed, "There's really a formation!" Jun Changshao said, "With this formation, you don't have to worry about being exposed after your spiritual power recovers." Jiangya raised his hand and touched the formation barrier that had merged with the environment. He was secretly shocked. To be able to set up a hidden formation that is difficult to spy on, Sect Master must be a formation master. Chapter 324. The isolation array was set up in an open area, which solved the risk of being exposed. At this time, Jun Changshao was waiting for the Iron Bone Mountains environment to improve and draw out the spirit power seed hidden underground to achieve spirit power recovery. How long would it take? There was no time. Therefore, after he was done with his work, he began to focus on his cultivation. After taking a 15-fold chi gathering pill, being in a 10-fold spirit gathering array, and occasionally taking a few spirit stones, his cultivation speed was very fast. Even so, Jun Changshao estimated that he would need at least 2 to 3 months to enter the 3rd stage from the 2nd stage. "Sigh," he said helplessly, "the higher the stage, the harder it is to cultivate." Jun Changshao improved slowly, but the disciples improved quickly, especially the new disciples. With the support of the mental cultivation method, array and pills, they could open a meridian every few days. For example, Zheng Yan, who had a mid-grade spirit root. Before entering the sect, he was at the 6th stage of meridian opening. After cultivating in the sect for half a month, he had reached the 12th stage. Even Li Qingyang with a high-grade spirit root couldn't compare to this speed. This meant that as the Iron Bone sect had more martial resources, the disciples' cultivation speed was no longer comparable to before. As long as there are 500 more 12th stage meridian opening disciples, we will have the qualifications to be certified as a 6th-rate sect. Jun Changshao murmured. It hadn't been half a year since they reached the 7th rate, and now they were about to advance again. The speed was very fast. If this spread out, it would cause a huge uproar. Of course, Sect Master Jun wouldn't let down his guard. He had ordered Li Luoqiu to spread out his spies and protect the sect in all directions. If there was any movement, he would immediately activate the sect protection array. When the matter of the green dragon crescent blade spread in the Jianghu, it attracted the attention of many experts. Then, when they learned that the Iron Bone sect and the Tsang Mountain sect had formed an alliance, they dispelled that bad idea. At present, the Demon Fiend sect was the only enemy on the surface. After cultivating in the spirit gathering array for 4 hours, Jun Changshao returned to the study and took out the soft silk armor that he had refined earlier. It was made of spider silk, soft and light, and could be worn as underwear. Jun Changshao asked, "How's the defense?" He placed the soft silk armor on the table, took out the Desert Eagle, and fired a shot. In the end, not a single trace was left behind. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changshao put on the soft silk armor and pressed the muzzle against his chest. Boom! He decisively fired another shot. Still, there was not a single mark. His body did not even feel the slightest bit of pain or impact. So strong. Jun Changshao was stunned. In order to better test the defensive strength of the soft silk armor, he called Su Xiaoma over and said, "Put it on." Sect leader. After putting on the soft silk armor, Su Xiaoma smiled and said, "It's quite comfortable." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a fist carrying 50,000 kilograms of force smashed into his abdomen, startling him. How is it? Jun Changxiao withdrew his fist. Su Xiaoma finally realized that the reason the sect leader wanted him to wear the soft armor was to test his defense. Although he was on the verge of breaking down, he still said, I don't feel anything at all. Boom. Jun Changxiao punched again, raising his strength to 60,000 kilograms and said, How about now? Still nothing. Boom. It hurts a little. Boom. It hurts a lot. Boom. Jun Changxiao continued to increase his strength until it reached 100,000 kilograms. Su Xiaoma was finally sent flying. He held his abdomen and said in pain, Sect leader, it hurts so much. He was injured. After a series of tests, Jun Changxiao came to a conclusion. The soft silk armor could withstand up to 100,000 kilograms of force. If it was any higher, he would be injured. Not bad, Jun Changxiao said. This kind of armor could completely withstand most of the damage from the first-grade Wuzong. If a low-level disciple wore it, they would be absolutely safe. Host, you think too much. The system said. Su Xiaoma could withstand so much force because of his high cultivation. If it were a normal martial disciple or martial master, they might not be able to activate such a strong defense. So it's like that, Jun Changxiao said. Even so, he was very satisfied. In any case, wearing it as underwear wouldn't affect him at all. It was equivalent to wearing a third-grade armor. I still have a lot of spider silk. Let's forge a few dozen first. Jun Changxiao opened the forging pavilion and began to forge. The next day, after summoning the inner disciples, each of them was given a soft silk armor to protect themselves. I need to refine the middle-grade healing pill, the talisman, and the middle-grade cold ray sword. Jun Changxiao muttered. I have to get the materials. Because of the hidden danger of the demon fiend sect, he couldn't wholeheartedly cultivate. He had to prepare for a rainy day, especially the rune talisman of the talisman pavilion. It had to be refined, so that it could be used to escape in times of danger. It's very difficult to buy a wind element crystal core. Jun Changxiao held his chin, and after thinking for a while he said, I can only go to the forest where the vicious beasts are everywhere to hunt. The powerful vicious beasts in the Death Valley were almost all killed, so he could only find another way. Qingyang, Jun Changxiao said. Are there any other forbidden areas in Qingyang County that are filled with vicious beasts? Li Qingyang thought for a while and said, There's only one forbidden area, Death Valley, and nothing else. Are there any in the other counties? Jun Changxiao said. Li Qingyang said, Huayang County has a 10,000 beast mountain range that stretches for hundreds of miles. It is considered a forbidden area by martial artists. It is said that there are spirit beasts comparable to martial kings there. Is that so? Talismans required crystal cores, weapons required ores, and most of these things could only be found in dangerous mountains and forests, so Jun Changxiao was moved. It's boring to cultivate in the sect all day. Why don't I go to the 10,000 beast mountain range and take it as an experience? He muttered. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched. Sect leader, 10,000 beast mountain range is much more dangerous than Death Valley. The more dangerous it is, the more challenging it is. Jun Changxiao made up his mind. He arranged the sect's affairs to Li Qingyang and Li Luoqiu, and then decided to go to Huayang County to train. Before that, he went to the mountain range behind the sect and summoned the little dragon. There was another mission in the 10,000 beast mountain range, and that was to get more food for the little guy. Swoosh! The fire dragon came out of the dark with a wild rabbit in its mouth. The little guy's physique did not change, but its body was full of wildness, and the coldness in its eyes was much stronger than before. Vicious beasts could only be called vicious beasts after experiencing life and death in the mountains and forests. If they were kept at home, they could only be considered pets or livestock. Let's go, Jun Changxiao said. Let's go to the wilderness to train. The little dragon's eyes lit up, and then it jumped onto its master's shoulder and coiled up, letting out a dragon-like roar. Swoosh! Jun Changxiao threw out the gate palm ball and summoned the juvenile purple lightning. He then rode on it and sped toward Huayang County. Soon, the Miaohua Palace would come to visit. Therefore, the training time was set to be 1 month. On the way to Huayang County, Jun Changshao activated the Sect protection array again, and reminded the disciples to cultivate in the Sect as much as possible except for missions, and not to go out easily. Swoosh! The juvenile purple lightning tiger sped up, and turned into a purple light, traveling in the wilderness. In just 1 day they entered Huayang County. Chapter 325. Huayang County had a 1,000-beast mountain range that stretched for hundreds of miles. It was known as the Heaven of Beasts and the Grave of Humans. From the name alone, one could tell that there were many beasts here. Because there were many beasts, humans did not dare to set foot here. Therefore, there were rich ores and medicinal herbs. It was a treasure land to make a fortune. 1,000 years ago, a young man accidentally entered the 1,000-beast mountain range. Not only did he not die in the mouth of the beasts, but he also obtained a rare 10,000-year-old Lingji. Although the final result was that he consumed a great tonic rashly and ended up exploding, it also told the world that there were many treasures hidden in this dangerous place. Therefore, Huayang County became a hot place to explore. Many forces and rogue cultivators would explore the 1,000-beast mountain range every day. There was only one entrance to the mountain range. Over time, many martial artists gathered and formed a stronghold. Later, it slowly developed into a town and was named Fuguei Town. Why was it called Fuguei Town? Because it meant that martial artists who entered the mountain range could return with wealth. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. Every year, tens of thousands of martial artists entered the 1,000-beast mountain range. Let alone returning with wealth, only 20 to 30% of them returned with nothing. Wealth came from danger. Many people did not seek wealth, but instead became food in the mouth of the beasts. Even so, it did not stop martial artists from exploring. This was because every once in a while, there would be someone who managed to survive a calamity and obtain a heavenly treasure. This was just like the dungeons in games. Although it was easy to die, there were still many players who would fight tirelessly for the sake of equipment. However, in the game, you could restart if you died. In this cruel world, you would have nothing if you died. At the entrance of Fuguei Town, Jun Changshao, who was dressed in white, walked in. Seeing many martial artists equipped with weapons on the main street, he murmured, "It's quite lively." He first found an inn to stay, and then went out to walk around the streets. He learned about the 1,000-beast mountain range from passers-by. Jun Changshao was now in Wuzhong. He was already one of the strongest in the low-level county. However, being able to understand more about the danger zones would only bring benefits and no harm. After asking around, Jun Changshao knew that he needed a map to enter the 1,000-beast mountain range, so he bought one from the grocery store. The map was not big, but it was drawn very carefully. The mountain range was divided into several different colored areas. The darker the color, the more dangerous it was. Of course, there were still many unknown areas. The owner of the grocery store saw that he was a little unfamiliar and kindly reminded him, "Young man, if you don't have a strong team, you must not enter an unknown area alone. Otherwise, you will easily die." The next morning, Jun Changshao left the room and walked along the main street toward the entrance to the 10,000-beast mountain range. Not only did he prepare a map, but he also prepared a lot of dry rations and dozens of spatial rings to store food for the little dragon. Hee, is that a lizard wrapped around this kid's shoulder? In my opinion, it looks more like a snake. Seeing the little dragon lying on Jun Changshao's shoulder, the cultivators on the road began whispering amongst themselves, some of them even mocking him. On the Falling Star continent, only ferocious beasts were worthy of respect. Animals that posed no threat would only become laughingstocks. Hiss! Hearing everyone's mocking, little Longlong's eyes flashed with anger. Jun Changshao stroked its little head and comforted it. Don't lower yourself to the level of an ordinary person. They had come to the 10,000-beast mountain range in search of various resources. Otherwise, he would definitely let little Longlong release a scorching flame to slap their faces. Very soon, Jun Changshao arrived at the entrance of the mountain range. At this moment, hundreds of cultivators had already gathered. Many of them were holding signs with all kinds of recruitment words written on them. Form a team and head to the third area. 4 and 1, come with a strong output. Form a team and head to the sixth area. 8 and 2, come with someone who can resist, and someone who knows healing mental cultivation method. Newcomers, please bring experienced people, and not go to the dangerous area. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched and said, no matter how I look at it, why do they look like players in online games? If it wasn't for the fact that he had something important to do, he might have set up a sign and written on it experienced driver bringing people into the 10,000 beast mountain range for sightseeing. 100,000 taels per seat. Full stop. Hey. At this moment, a short teenager walked over and grinned. Friend, do you have a team? Do you want to go to the fourth area with me? Not interested. Jun Changshao declined with a smile. The young man did not give up and said in a low voice, friend, I won't hide it from you. I found a good place in the fourth area. If you are interested, you can go and take a gamble. Jun Changshao did not reply, nor did he pay attention to him. The young man curled his lips and said, you're not even tempted by this. You must be a newbie and don't have the guts. Jun Changshao continued to walk towards the entrance. During this period, there were many cultivators who recruited him, including very beautiful girls, but he rejected them all. It was safer to form a group. But in sect leader Jun's eyes, going in with these people was equivalent to bringing a group of burdens. Everyone. A man in tight clothes standing in front of the entrance said, let's go. As he spoke, he walked in. The 8 or 9 recruited teammates followed closely behind. They knew that this trip was very dangerous, but for the sake of martial arts resources, they had long been mentally prepared. Jun Changshao did not hesitate and strode in. Damn! That guy seems to be alone, right? How brave must he be to dare enter the 10,000 beast mountain range alone? Could he be an expert? Judging from his aura, he doesn't seem to be very strong. Needless to say, he must be an arrogant junior who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and wants to go in to seek excitement. The ferocious beasts of the 10,000 beast mountain range love to attack lone cultivators. If this guy goes in alone, he will definitely die if he goes in even a little deeper. Jun Changshao disappeared from sight, and all the cultivators immediately began to discuss. Those who recruited him along the way finally understood why he rejected them. It turned out that he was an idiot who wanted to enter the 10,000 beast mountain range alone. The 10,000 beast mountain range was different from Death Valley. There were no valleys or mountain walls. Instead, there were towering trees with branches and leaves that covered the sun, making the interior dark and damp. As soon as Jun Changshao walked in, he saw the team that had entered first. They were already on guard, ready for any sudden changes. Their strength was not too high, so it was not wrong to be cautious. A supreme Wuzong like our sect leader Jun followed the map's instructions without any scruples, and directly headed towards the dangerous area. Little brother. The leader of the team shouted, you came in alone. That's right, Jun Changshao said. Several cultivators were stunned and immediately muttered, this guy came in alone. Is he not here to die? The leader kindly reminded, little brother, the ferocious beasts of the 10,000 beast mountain range love to sneak up on lone cultivators. It might be dangerous for you to come in alone. Why don't you come with us? Brother Qin. The man next to him glanced at Jun Changshao and said with dissatisfaction, we are going to the sixth area. It's not good to bring a burden. Yes. The fatty behind frowned and said, boss, our trip is very dangerous. We can't casually bring someone in. A burden? Casually bring someone in? They were being underestimated. Jun Changshao did not care and said, I like to go alone. I'm not interested in joining a team. After saying that, he continued to move forward. TSK. The man disdainfully said, what an arrogant guy. The leader shook his head and said, let's go. Swish. At this moment, a ferocious beast that looked like a leopard jumped out from a tree and viciously pounced on Jun Changshao. Be careful, the leader exclaimed. Boom. As soon as his voice fell, There was an explosion. The leopard beast was punched in the head by Jun Changshao, and its brain flew everywhere. Then it directly collapsed on the ground. The leader and several members all widened their eyes. Chapter 326. After killing the leopard with one punch, Jun Changshao cut his chest with the cold-edged sword. There was no crystal core, so he headed toward the danger zone. Encountering a beast attack as soon as he entered meant that there were many in the mountain range. He wasn't in a hurry to store food for the little dragon. Sect leader Jun left. The team behind him was dumbfounded. After a long while, the fatty's mouth twitched. "Boss, that was a middle 4th grade golden patterned leopard, right?" "That's right," the leader said seriously. "It was a golden patterned leopard." Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. A beast comparable to a 4th grade martial master was killed by that guy with one punch. That was too terrifying. The strongest person in the team was only a 1st grade martial master. Jun Changshao killed a middle 4th grade golden patterned leopard with one punch. He shocked them greatly. The leader guessed. To be able to kill a golden patterned leopard, this little brother's cultivation must be at least a 6th or 7th grade martial master. The man who mocked Jun Changshao earlier blushed. After all, he was only a peak martial disciple. How could he say that an expert who could kill a golden patterned leopard was a burden? The other members were also slapped in the face. Brother Qin said that Jun Changshao should join them. Although no one said it out loud, they all looked at him with contempt. In the end, he was an expert. Brother Qin said, "If he joins our team and enters the 6th area, we will definitely return with a full load." Sigh. He sighed and said, "Let's go. I will skin the golden patterned leopard." One of the members ran over and peeled off the fur and bones. Jun Changshao also wanted to take the beast. However, he still needed to store a large amount of food for the little dragon in his interspatial ring. He didn't take the beast's skin and bones. The middle 4th grade was low. Sect leader Jun was a bit arrogant. There were many areas in the 10,000 Beast Mountain range. The first few areas were relatively safe. They were often explored by humans and didn't have anything valuable. Jun Changshao directly locked onto the deeper areas. There were few people there. Not only were there abundant resources, but there were also many high-level beasts. Roar! On the way, a beast pounced over. Puchi Jun Changshao brandished his sword and directly cut off the head. He then slashed open the chest and obtained a crystal core. The most valuable part of a beast was this thing. Even if the level of the monster he killed was not high, he would not leave it for others to pick up. 10 minutes later, Jun Changshao quickly entered the 3rd region. If an adventuring martial artist were to see this, they would definitely prostrate themselves in admiration. Walking so quickly in the 10,000 Beast Mountain range, was he not afraid of attracting the attention of even more ferocious beasts? To be honest, along the way, they had indeed alarmed quite a few ferocious beasts. In the end, every single one of them that came died. They were simply delivering their heads and crystal cores. There was no other way. Only after they died did they realize that this lone human had such terrifying strength. Jun Changshao kept the ones with good quality meat in his spatial ring for the little long. As for the ones with poor quality meat, he didn't bother with them. The small team behind him was going to the 6th area, which happened to be on the same path as him. Every once in a while, they would see a fresh corpse of a ferocious beast, and the corners of their mouths would twitch. "Boss," Fatty said. "Could it be that young man in white who killed it?" The leader touched the corpse of the ferocious beast and felt that it was still warm. He said, "It died not long ago. He must have killed it." Fatty's mouth twitched. There are no traces of fighting at all. It must be an instant kill again. Expert, definitely an expert. No wonder he dared to enter the 10,000 Beast Mountain range alone. It's such a pity that such a strong expert couldn't join our team. In every region of the 10,000 Beast Mountain range, there were small teams that had entered in advance. They were either vigilant or fighting with the ferocious beasts. Jun Changshao would occasionally encounter them. However, what really broadened his horizons was, in a remote mountain forest, a few martial artists with decent cultivation blocked another team and forced them to hand over their spatial rings. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "In the mountain forest, not only do we have to be wary of the ferocious beasts, but we also have to be wary of our own kind." He didn't meddle in other people's business and continued to move forward. Since they had chosen to enter the 10,000 Beast Mountain range, everyone should be prepared to die, even if they were killed by the ferocious beasts or their own kind. Jun Changxiao's current state of mind was, he was not a chivalrous person. If others were in danger, it had nothing to do with him. Of course, if it were his own disciples who dared to rob him, he would kill them directly. It was not uncommon for martial cultivators with bad intentions to rob other teams. This was not normal. When Jun Changxiao arrived at the 4th region, he saw a few corpses lying in the distance. 3 martial artists with martial master cultivation were searching for their spatial rings. There was no need to think. They must have failed to get the spatial rings and killed the other team. A middle-aged man with a ferocious look suddenly turned his head and said in a deep voice, "Who is sneaking around in the dark?" Jun Changxiao walked out and said, "If I say that I am just passing by, would you believe me? Passing by." The middle-aged man smiled sinisterly and said, "In my opinion, you should be an accomplice of this team." Shush! Shush! The other 2 martial artists immediately surrounded him, their eyes filled with murderous intent. "This was a big misunderstanding," Jun Changxiao said. "So you want to kill for money?" "Kill for money." One of the martial artists walked over and slashed with his sword. He sneered and said, "You are wrong. This is the law of the jungle." Swoosh! The sword light flashed. Jun Changxiao had unknowingly circled behind him. The cold-edged sword in his hand flashed. He said, "That makes sense." Sizzle! The martial artist stood on the spot. His neck was cut and blood splattered. He immediately fell down. Third brother. The 2 martial artists' eyes were about to pop out. However, the one closest to Jun Changxiao felt a chill on his neck before he could do anything. His mind was instantly destroyed. Plop! He fell to the ground, blood splattering. Second brother. The middle-aged man shouted in grief. However, he still had absolute rationality. He realized that the opponent was very strong and hurried to the dark. As soon as he got into the grass, he raised his hand and retreated. Jun Changxiao's cold-edged sword was already on his neck. "Friend," the middle-aged man said in horror, I am willing to hand over my spatial ring." "Remember," Jun Changxiao said coldly, "this is the world of the jungle." Puchi! The sword light flashed and cut his throat. The middle-aged man covered his bleeding neck. His eyes were filled with fear of death. In the end, he collapsed on the ground. Jun Changxiao took the spatial rings from the 3 and continued to walk deeper. 3 strong martial artists ate a small team. Sect leader Jun, who was stronger, ate them. This was the law of the jungle. TSK. On the way, he flipped through a few spatial rings and found that there were many crystal cores and bones inside. Jun Changxiao sighed with emotion. Robbing is a promising profession. He just thought about it. He didn't plan to rob. After all, as the leader of a sect, if news of him doing such a thing spread, it would definitely damage his reputation. However, Jun Changxiao stopped and held his chin. "I can rob those robbers. Not only can I get good things, even if I am recognized, I can also gain a good reputation." Chapter 327. Jun Changxiao returned to the remote forest. He wanted to rob the cultivators who robbed others and take back their interspatial rings. Euphemistically, if you are heartless to others, I will be unjust to you. Bang! Bang! In the previous area, the few robbers were already fighting with the small group of cultivators in the forest. Because of the disparity in strength, the small group was at a disadvantage. Shua! Jun Changxiao rushed over with the cloud-treading steps. He snatched the weapons of the robbers with his bare hands and kicked them to the ground. They were only martial disciples. It was easy to kill them. Suddenly, an expert helped them get out of their predicament. The eyes of the small group of cultivators were filled with gratitude. "Little friend." The leader cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help." Jun Chang smiled and said, seeing injustice on the road, we should draw our swords to help. This is what Jianghu people should do. Everyone was in awe. These days, it was rare to see a chivalrous person. The leader wanted to say something, but sect leader Jun said, there are ferocious beasts here. It is not good to stay here. Leave quickly. Thank you for your kindness. Goodbye. The leader hurriedly left with the other members. After they left, Jun Changshao stepped on the body of the robbers who were pretending to be dead. He said coldly, hand over your interspatial rings and I will spare your lives. If the cultivators who left heard this, they would definitely break down. Big brother, are you trying to rob them, or are you trying to rob them? I will hand them over. The few cultivators realized that their lives were in danger. They hurriedly handed over their interspatial rings. There were quite a few of them. There were more than 10 of them. It seemed that they had robbed quite a few people. Scram! Sect leader Jun wanted the interspatial rings. Since he got them, he would not kill them mercilessly. Damn it! The few cultivators covered their stomachs and ran away. They squatted under a tree angrily. Big brother, one of them said, we can't take this lying down. Damn it! The leader said angrily. That gigolo dared to rob our blood wolf mercenary group. He must be tired of living. There were many forces on the Falling Star continent, such as clans, sects, and even an organization known as a mercenary group. In the beginning, when I participated in the Xuanhuan boss writing competition, I wanted to write a novel where the main character was the leader of a mercenary group and brought a group of subordinates to various dungeons to fight monsters. Later on, he chose the sect leader style, and thus the current Iron Bonjung sect was born. Am I proud? The mercenary groups on the Starfall continent were similar to the mercenary groups on Earth. However, they also needed a large amount of martial arts resources. Therefore, hunting ferocious beasts in the forest became their main means of livelihood. Of course, most of the members of the mercenary group were rogue cultivators, and they were not as professional as the sects, so their overall strength was not high. At present, the three most well-known mercenary groups could only compete with the fifth-rate sects in terms of level. The Blood Wolf mercenary group mentioned by the warrior was quite powerful. It had close to 1,000 members, and the cultivation of the upper echelons was also very strong. They were active in the 10,000 Beast mountain range all year round. This mercenary group not only focused on hunting ferocious beasts, but they also focused on robbing rogue cultivators. It could be said that they were the overlords of the 10,000 Beast mountain range. Doggy, the boss said hatefully, contact the people nearby and gather them together. We can't let that guy escape. Yes. The subordinate called Doggy took out something similar to a firecracker and raised it high. A stream of light flew up. Jun Changshao, who had just left, raised his head and saw the stream of light flashing through the gaps between the trees. He muttered, a cloud-piercing arrow, and thousands of troops come to meet me? He ignored it, and continued to look through the dozen or so spatial rings that he had just obtained. Although sect leader Jun had just entered, he had obtained a lot of crystal cores, herbs, and ores from the two groups of robbers. Unfortunately, there were no wind crystal cores. There were also no herbs and ores suitable for refining pills and equipment. Sigh, Jun Changshao said. I can only find them myself. Behind them, the members of the Blood Wolf mercenary group in other areas gathered after seeing the signal. In a moment, 50 to 60 people had gathered. Little Ding, one person said in a deep voice. What happened? Vice Captain Zhang, the one called Little Ding, held his stomach and said, a guy robbed us. Mercenary groups were usually divided by captains. Each team had a captain and a vice captain, and there were fixed members. Vice Captain Zhang was the vice captain of the third team of the Blood Wolf mercenary group. He was relatively strong and had already reached the cultivation of a third-grade martial master. The few people who were robbed by Jun Changshao, as well as the martial artists who gathered here, were all members of the third team. Vice Captain Zhang said angrily, how dare he rob my Blood Wolf mercenary group? Lead the way. He said coldly, go find that guy. Little Ding said, Captain, second brother and third brother haven't arrived yet. Do you want to wait for them? That kid was strong, so he naturally wanted to bring more people to let him understand that there was a price to pay for helping others. Captain and the others should have entered deeper areas. Let's chase after them first, lest that guy runs away, Vice Captain Zhang said. All right. Little Ding hurriedly led the way and chased after the direction Jun Changxiao left. It's the Blood Wolf mercenary group. Why are there so many people gathered? Each and every one of them looks fierce. Could it be that someone offended them? Vice Captain Zhang and his men galloped through the forest with great momentum, which immediately alarmed many small teams. Jun Changxiao returned the way he came and continued to move deeper. As long as a fierce beast rushed over, he would kill it and take its crystal core. Not long after, he came to the area where the 3 people were killed just now. At this moment, Vice Captain Zhang and dozens of his men caught up. Little Ding pointed at Jun Changxiao and said angrily, "It's him!" Shua, shua, shua. The members of the mercenary group rushed over and surrounded Jun Changxiao. Each and every one of them was glaring fiercely at Jun Changxiao. Vice Captain Zhang. At this moment, a member pointed at the corpse next to him and exclaimed, "It's Captain." What? Vice Captain Zhang walked over and recognized the corpse at a glance. It was really the captain. It turned out that the 3 martial artists killed by Sect leader Jun were the captain of the 3rd team of the Blood Wolf mercenary group and his 2 brothers. It had to be said that it was fate. Kid. Vice Captain Zhang looked over and shouted angrily, "You killed them?" "That's right," Jun Changxiao said. As soon as these words came out, the 50 to 60 members of the 3rd team were furious. Vice Captain Zhang summoned a pair of axes and said with a murderous look, "A life for a life, a debt must be paid." Although he said so, he was happy in his heart. Since the captain was dead, wouldn't he be promoted? If he got rid of the captain's murderer and went back to report to the leader, he would definitely be rewarded. Ha ha ha. Kid, you helped me so much to express my gratitude, so go to hell. Jun Changxiao didn't know what the other party was thinking, but said indifferently, "Your strength is not good enough, you deserve to die." There was nothing wrong with these words, and it was also very consistent with the law of the jungle. Less nonsense. Vice Captain Zhang took a step forward, and the 2 axes carried a strong force as he shouted angrily, "Give me your life." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.